May I remind members and members of the public that the meeting will be streamed live on a webcast from the Council's website. Turn to the agenda, item 2, apologies. Have we any apologies? So far, I've received them from Councillors Chatterton, Lancaster and Leach. Are there any to add? Thank you. Item 3, the minutes of the last council meeting. Is Council agreed that the council minutes from the meeting held on the 19th of May 2021 are agreed with a slight amendment to the attendance list and will include Councillor Lancaster? Do you agree? Thank you. Item 4, declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest from members in respect of matters to be determined by this council meeting? Councillor Chris Gloucester and Hazel Gloucester have a personal interest and Councillor Gary has a pecuniary interest at item 8D by virtue of employment with Greater Manchester Police. Can members now declare any matters at this meeting? Councillor Goodwin.
Personal interest as a member of the GMPF pension scheme.
Thank you. Councillor Jabbar.
Same, Madam Mayor, on item 10, the same interest, personal interest.
Thank you. Councillor Roberts.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, the same.
Councillor Shuttleworth.
Declaration of interest on the Cabinet Minute 22nd of March, item 10, page 34, by virtue of being a member of the Unity Board.
Thank you. Councillor Steve Bashforth.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Personal interest as a member of the Greater Manchester Pension Fund.
Thank you. Councillor Marie Bashforth.
Personal interest, Greater Manchester Pension Board.
Sorry, Councillor, I'm really sorry. I can't
Wilkinson.
see your board. Can you state your name, please?
Councillor Wilkinson.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry about that.
It's
Carry
no problem. Pecuniary interest in item 8D by virtue of employment with Greater Manchester Police and receiving a pension.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Moores.
Personal interest in the Greater Manchester Pension Fund. My wife's a member.
Councillor Mohammed Ghazalias.
Personally, as member of Greater Manchester Pension Fund.
Thank you. Councillor Brownridge.
Greater Manchester Pension Fund.
Thank you. Councillor Birch.
Personal interest as a member of the Greater Manchester Pension Fund.
Thank you. Councillor Akhtar.
Personal interest in as a member of Greater Manchester Pension Fund.
Councillor Alexander.
Personal interest in Greater Manchester Pension Fund.
Thank you. Councillor Cosgrove.
Personal interest in Greater Manchester Pension Fund.
Thank you. Councillor Ahmed.
Personal interest in Greater Manchester Pension Fund, member.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry. Councillor Sykes.
Councillor Sykes, personal interest, Greater Manchester Pension Fund.
Thank you. Have I missed anybody? Sorry. Yes, Councillor Sheldon.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. A personal interest in Greater Manchester Pension Fund.
Thank you. Anybody else? It's very difficult from up here to actually catch everybody, and I apologise if any new members, if your name just slips my mind tonight. I'll apologise in advance. It's nothing personal, but if you just state your name. Thank you very much. I think there will be an opportunity to sign a form. It won't be passed around tonight as normal for obvious reasons, But that's everything declared. Thank you. Next item, urgent business, and I've not been notified of any. Item 6, communications, and I have been notified by the leader that a statement is, she's going to read a statement to the meeting. Does Council agree this? Thank you. Councillor Shah, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As you know, there's been some questions raised about an update into the CSE review. So in November 2019, Oldham Council and Oldham Safeguarding Board wrote to Greater Manchester Combined Authority to commission an independent review into the effectiveness of multi-agency responses to child sexual exploitation in Oldham. The review's remit is to look at historical allegations relating to child sexual exploitation and to consider whether the Council and its partners provided an appropriate response to protect children. The Greater Manchester Combined Authority appointed Malcolm Newsom and Gary Ridgway to oversee this review. Both Gary and Malcolm have extensive experience in social care and policing and have carried out reviews in other areas, including Northamptonshire and more recently Manchester. I recently wrote to Baroness Beverly Hughes, Deputy Mayor of Greater Manchester, to ask her to provide an update on the progress of this review. Baroness Hughes has confirmed that the review is progressing well and that they continue to receive the support and access to information that they need to complete their work effectively. She has confirmed that the review team have so far reviewed hundreds of documents, reports and files, interviewed over 45 people and received 9 written submissions relating to their inquiries. Baroness Hughes has provided assurances that a first draft of the report should be completed by September, but that a number of procedural steps must then be taken, including review by legal counsel to ensure that the report is appropriately anonymised and in line with data protection legislation, and review by individuals mentioned to give them the opportunity to make representations. She has informed us that given the complexity and scale of this work, this could then take a number of months. We all share a desire for the review to be published as soon as possible, but we cannot rush them and risk jeopardising the ability of the review team to complete their work diligently, thoroughly and transparently. I can confirm that the Council will do everything in its power to support the swift publication of this report once it is finalised. Our biggest responsibility as a Council is to keep our children and young people safe. The review team are leading experts, so I have no doubt they will identify areas where our work in the past has fallen short. And I would add, Madam Mayor, that nothing should be said today which seeks to either preempt or undermine the review. I am acutely aware that those who seek to make political capital will portray whatever is found as part of a conspiracy, if it falls short of completely slamming all that was done at the time to protect young people. We must not allow that to guide us or to blind us, in that we must take its findings, even where it offers challenge, and use that to ensure lessons are learned. Nothing, Madam Mayor, and I repeat, nothing matters more than the protection of young people and bringing abusers to trial. And so I ask each and every one of you in Oldham, firstly, help us instill confidence so that victims feel supported to come forward. Help us educate and go into every community to teach young people what positive relationships are and what signs of abuse to watch out for, including control, grooming and inappropriate behaviour at home, in the community or online. Secondly, there is no hierarchy of victim or offender based on race, religion, social class, gender or anything else. All victims must be supported equally and all offenders must be dealt with robustly and with the full weight of the law. I will not shy away, and I hope I have the support of the whole chamber and the wider community. And finally, all of us in public service are here to serve the community to the best of our ability and judgment. It is a fact, and a horrible fact at that abuse does take place. Protesting, abusing and marginalising those of us fighting to put it right does not help victims nor encouraging decent people into public service. My personal commitment to you is honesty, hard work and accountability. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Shah. We move on to petitions, and I've not received any. There's no Youth Council business, so we move on to question time. So this part of the agenda is question time, where Council will consider all questions submitted in the order that they were received, starting with public questions. This meeting is open to the public, not a public meeting, which means that the only people with a right to speak are councillors and other people who may only speak at the invitation of the Mayor during public question time. There's a 15-minute time limit for public questions, and once this time limit expires, no further questions will be asked. There is no right of reply to answers given. Under these present circumstances, I will be reading out the questions, obviously because of the COVID restrictions. If the time limit has expired and a member of the public has submitted a question which has been ruled in for consideration, the question and response will be published on the Council's website. So the first question has been received from Mark Birchall. Could we have a statement from the Leader of the Council regarding the latest vandalism and violence at the factory on the 21st of June 2021? We are aware that MP Debbie Abrahams, the leader of Oldham Metropolitan Borough Council, and several councillors attended to support the demonstration in Parliament Square. Was any consideration given to the struggling business owners in the area who probably were affected by this? Also, the constant attendance at the factory, which has now been taken to a different and more dangerous level. Has consideration been given to residents near to the factory who are having to endure the kind of behaviour and are concerned for their own safety with the level of violence and vandalism now being carried out at the premises? I call on Councillor Shah to respond. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The right to peaceful protest is a vital element of any functioning democracy and one that should be forcefully defended. The police crime, sentencing and courts bill that the government are currently trying to pass, and which, amongst other things, allows the police to restrict protests that are noisy, is an affront to our democracy. Peaceful protests should not lead to vandalism and violence. However, we will always work with the police and our partners to stop that happening. We are aware that GMP are in regular dialogue with Albert and have a patrol plan for the area to reassure businesses and residents. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
The next question has been submitted by Robert Barnes. Following the attack on Elbit Ferranti on Monday, June 21st, 2021, with the smashing of windows and paint being thrown on the floor outside the building, will the council leader categorically condemn the violence aimed at business in our town? Furthermore, will she also look into the issue of young children being taken to the regular protests that are held outside Elbit Ferranti? This should be a cause of great concern and treated as a potential safeguarding issue, as children are too young to understand the very complex issues surrounding this matter. Children of such a young age should not be at such protests. Councillor Shah, please to respond.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, I'm not going to repeat what I said in the answer to the previous question, but on the specific issue of young people in protests, parents and carers can make the decision to bring their children to organised demonstrations or protests. There is no legislation that enables the local authority to prevent this. However, if individual safeguarding concerns arise at the time of the event and it is felt that a child is at risk of significant harm as a result, then safeguarding process should be followed and referral made into Children's Services for consideration. We work closely with GMP and partner agencies to ensure safeguarding processes are followed in such circumstances and look to minimise associated risks by engaging with protest organisers in the event planning stage. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Shah. The next question has been submitted by Lewis Quigg. Deborah Barrett-Cole has also submitted a similar question. Both will be addressed in one answer. Will the leader of the council, like any right-minded person in our town, condemn the actions of a convicted criminal who is planning to carry out street patrols in Oldham and Chadderton? Does she agree that this is an unacceptable development? And will she take action to stop a convicted criminal from patrolling our streets and support Greater Manchester Police in asking for more street patrols and funding for our police from the Mayor of Greater Manchester? And can the leader please tell me if she agreed with her long-time friend Mohammed Imran Ali, brackets Irish Imi, setting up groups of people to patrol the streets at night in Chadderton and Wornath? And will she be making available funds for equipment needed for nighttime street patrols? I call on Councillor Shargan. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, for reading out the question. As a council, we would not seek to condemn any member of the public who wishes to improve their local area. People's concerns about the levels of crime in their area are very real and something that all members hear about from their local residents very regularly. We would, however, question whether street patrols of this nature are the best or the most appropriate solution to the issues residents raise. As a result, the council does not currently offer any support or funding to these types of groups and has no plans to do so. GMP work closely with individuals or groups looking to establish local neighbourhood or street watch schemes like the one this question refers to. They engage directly with these groups to support and advise them on best practice, including ensuring adequate insurance is in place, the establishment of codes of conduct for volunteers, and making sure effective safeguarding procedures are carried out, which could include disclosure and barring service checks on volunteers where required. We have passed on details of this proposed scheme to Greater Manchester Police so that they can engage with individuals involved directly to provide this advice and support. We will, as we have always done, continue to fight for better funding for our police services to increase visible policing in our neighbourhoods. The Greater Manchester Mayor has taken action to increase the funding that GMP receives locally through the police precept, but more than 75% of the force's funding comes from central government. It is not a secret that years of central government cuts to police funding have led to over 20,000 fewer police on our streets over the last 10 years, and we will continue to highlight this and lobby for more resources for our local police. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
The next part of this section is questions to Leader and Cabinet with a time limit of 30 minutes. I have advance notice of questions. The Leader of the Liberal Democratic Group will ask his questions. Councillor Sykes, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and it'd be remiss of me to welcome Councillor Aroosh Shah to this meeting, and I'm sure everybody would join me in condemning what she's had to experience recently, and we're doing those people to show we are conducting the business of the town here tonight. So, good honour for that. Madam Mayor, my first question as leader tonight, on behalf of my Liberal Democrat colleagues, is one of paramount importance to the future of the people of our borough, and indeed the people of our planet. I am, of course, referring to climate change and this council's ambitious targets to become carbon neutral in 2025 and make our borough carbon neutral by 2030. Oldham cannot, of course, single-handed save the world from climate change, but by taking practical actions to reduce our carbon footprint and by leading by example, we can make a difference. Every little bit does help. So I was pleased to see in the recently published COVID recovery strategy reference to the green recovery. But unfortunately, when it comes to actions and targets, the document falls short on specifics. It references our intention to develop plans for a new district heat network using renewable heat from disused mines underneath the town centre, and to start to deliver improvements in energy efficiency and social housing, and to develop plans for council corporate assets. The mine heating project is something I personally welcome and first suggested it to the then leader of the council in October 2014. But sadly, and surely it now must be in jeopardy, as the government failed to fund, support our bid for this as part of the Towns Fund bid. But in any case, this misses the real point. In Bedford, just as one example, the council has declared a climate change emergency like we have, identified its baseline level of carbon emissions, and is installing solar panels on its council buildings, replacing street lighting with LEDs, and establishing a hydropower scheme in the Great Ouse River to reduce its carbon emissions by 62%. 2025 is only 4 years away. Would the leader agree that by now the council should be doing like Bedford and not just planning and starting to deliver? So when are we going to start doing it if we're serious about 2025? Otherwise, how are we as a council going to show leadership and provide encouragement to our public, social and private sector partners and our citizens to join us in doing their bit to stop climate change and save the planet? Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. If I could just acknowledge Councillor Sykes' initial comment regarding the last 24 hours, which have been very difficult. And I can't say the attack outside my family home hasn't affected me and the people I love, because it has. But what I am clear about is whoever was responsible, and for whatever reason, I will not be diverted from the task in hand. Madam Mayor, our town is facing some of its biggest challenges yet, and as we emerge from COVID, the fragile nature of our economy and society will be tested to the limits. My sole focus is on the town and its people. I came into public life because I demand better for every man, woman and child here. And to realise better will require all the energy I and everyone in this chamber and more wider into the council and our partners have in us. So let's get on with the task in hand, and with doing that I'm going to defer the question to my colleague, Councillor Abdul-Jabbar, who has portfolio responsibility for the area that Councillor Sykes has just raised. But I would like to thank him for standing and supporting for exactly the good of what Oldham is. Thank you.
I call on Councillor Jabbar.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Thanks to Councillor Sykes for his question, and thanks to his party for constantly raising the green issue and their support in a number of things that we're trying to do. I think it's a really important question. Let me go through what we are doing. It's good that it's in the recovery plan, because that just shows the commitment of this Labour administration that we see green is an important part of recovery for this town. In terms of some of the details that you talked about, Howard, can I just say to you that we actually helped to set up Oldham Community Power, which is installed solar PV panels on a number of public-owned assets, and they are actually generating clean electricity for those buildings. We also installed solar power panels on the Tommyfield Market. We had planned to install a new ground-mounted solar farm on the Wrigley Head site, but sadly, as you know, the government turned down our request for funding from the decarbonisation fund. In terms of all the other things we're doing, we have got a very comprehensive plan. It's called the Green New Deal, first council anywhere in the land to have such a detailed, comprehensive plan to deal with the climate change issue. Now, you will say, well, we've not seen any projects. Well, I can assure you, right, we're doing a number of things. So the coal mine water district heating system that you talked about, it cost £20 million. We asked the government to give us £4 million from the Towns Fund. Unfortunately, they didn't. And that was just to do the borehole test and also do the feasibility. But it's not off the agenda. We're looking at different funding source. And I'm absolutely committed on behalf of the administration to find a way to bring that project to reality. We're absolutely committed to that. In terms of some of the other things that we're doing, of course, the target that you mentioned for 2025 is for the council buildings and for the street lighting to be carbon neutral by that date. Well, as part of the revision of our assets, we will make sure that whatever we do next, then the renewal energy stuff is taken care of, and we come too close to achieving carbon neutrality in our new buildings. So that's something we're doing. And as you know, as part of the street lighting, we're already working with the PFI provider to change the bulb to a low energy bulb. So we've done that. So there's a number of things we're doing, and I think if you look closely, Howard, that we're one of the leading authority in Greater Manchester. That's not enough as far as I'm concerned, because there is a lot more to be done. But as an administration, we are doing everything we can, and we are totally committed. And I look forward to working with you and your group on this matter. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Sykes, your second question, please.
Thank you. Thank the Leader of the Council for her comments and agree with them, and also the Deputy Leader. And we will be constructive about this because it's too important not to be. My second question tonight is a subject I've previously raised in Council, and that's using the spending power of the Council and its partners to do greater good for our communities by employing it to purchase goods and services from local producers, suppliers and tradespeople, and to employ local people. Of course, this creates a virtuous circle. Nobody disagrees with it, as local companies take on more local people, and then these companies and their people invest their earnings in the local economy, as do our residents who are council employees. Result, a more vibrant local economy, higher levels of local employment. It's not rocket science. It's rather the reverse. Meerkat TV celebrity Professor Alexandra Olof would call it simples. But for this to work, we need to ensure spending is placed with providers based in our district centres as well as Oldham itself. This strategy would reflect the new reality that I spoke of with the previous leader in September 2020 council meeting, suggesting how local is the new normal. For people are more likely to work from home, shop from home, socialise or engage in leisure activities in their home, around their home or in their home's locality. And when they do venture out, it will be to local outlets. They want their council and its partners to reflect that attitude, to invest first and foremost in our borough by spending, but also investing locally with trades and businesses in Chadderton, Failsworth, Lees, Royton, Shaw, Uppermill, amongst others, to make these district centres also vibrant alongside Oldham. Sometimes that may involve thinking outside the box, which is why I recently asked for consideration for an artisan and producers market to be established in Shaw. Can the leader therefore please tell me how far off the current 60% target for local spend are we? What is the administration going to do to increase our local spending by stages substantially above the current target of 60%? What plans are there to invest and spend in our district centres as well as Oldham? And what plans are there to earmark more of our council jobs and those of our partners for local people who live in our borough? What support are we giving local people so they can access these jobs, be it at the council, health bodies, colleges and other public services? We need to lead by example, as it will be us locally who builds back better, and we need to do it for ourselves. It is already clear to me nobody else is going to do it or help us do it in any meaningful way. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Call on the leader.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Absolutely committed to local spend in Oldham and the recovery of our economy. And I'm setting up working train to ensure that our procurement process focuses on social value far greater than it does at the moment. In terms of economic recovery setup, I have arranged and will be launching an economic review board, which will be chaired by Alan Francis, who's the principal of Oldham College, and other national and local experts who will help support us in setting out our building back agenda. Specific data will be provided to you, and I'm absolutely committed to economic recovery. And recent partnerships between the college and the NCA Employment for Young People is my is a step forward in my desire and commitment to show that I'm willing to work collaboratively to get the best and build better. The question around the artisan market, absolutely, and recently I met with you, Councillor Sykes, and we'd have this discussion, and I absolutely committed, which is why I've got a cabinet member for enterprise and businesses, which will focus on encouraging and supporting businesses in district centres by establishing hubs, but also I will look and provide and commit to the opportunity of investing in local people all the time, and that will be first and foremost in my agenda. Thank you very much.
I call on Councillor Sheldon, leader of the Conservative Group, to ask his questions. Councillor Sheldon.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My first question to the Council Leader, Councillor Aru Shah. It gives me great pleasure to congratulate you on your success to the position of leader of the Labour Group and of this Council. It is the first formal opportunity I have had to wish you well in this significant and demanding role. The Conservative Group will support you when we agree and put forward a fair and constructive objection where we may disagree. I am shocked by the news we heard yesterday about your personal trauma. Indeed, the attack on a person or their property must not be tolerated. The Conservative Group condemn all verbal and physical abuse to any person carrying out their work or duties. I do not know of any background information, but there seems to be tension in Oldham at the moment, and I'm hoping that by working with the local community and the police, these tensions will be calmed and subside. The police must be our first call to deal with the upholding of the law, and I would ask Councillor Shah to agree that any suggestion of vigilante groups keeping law and order in our town are strongly discouraged and stopped. Thank you.
Councillor Shah, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have previously answered this question as a public question, but I'd like to thank and welcome Councillor Graham Sheldon's comments. But I'd also like to take this opportunity to remind everyone in the chamber that whilst there are tensions in Oldham, the people of this chamber have the utmost responsibility to make sure that we challenge ourselves in our conduct, our colleagues in our conduct, and our political groups in our conduct. And that goes wider than just the membership of this chamber, Madam Mayor. And if we are true in promoting political peace, which I gave my commitment to at the annual council when I was declared leader of this council, then I would like to see that demonstrated across party. We call out bad behaviour, whether that's one of our own or whether that's anybody else. And of course, I don't understand why I keep getting this continuous questions around vigilante groups or anything else, and the police being the first point of contact. I find it deeply offensive that there's even an assumption that that's not something that I would believe in. I've mentioned previously about my upbringing, my background, my experiences, but I am here and I know who I am, and I am here to lead the council and to make the lives better of every single resident who lives in this council. So I welcome Councillor Graham Sheldon's comments, but I'd also like to point people to using policy areas to attack each other and have discussion and debate around, but not make any other assumptions that are dumbfounded and they know that aren't necessary or appropriate for this chamber, because every time we speak and every time we behave in a certain way and give room to these kind of conversations, we're actually doing a disservice to democracy for other people who are watching us. And I'd just like to remind everybody in the chamber of our responsibilities. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Sheldon, your second question, please.
I thank the leader for answering that question, and I can certainly say that we will work together with everybody to stop any of that behaviour if it does start to occur. The second question is on a brighter note, with the easing, or shall we say the end of lockdown next Monday. We're all aware of new expectations which could increase the COVID infections in the country, in the borough. We are told that the vaccination could be up to 98% effective in preventing these infections. I believe it is still a race to vaccinate people as the disease continues to spread. Long COVID is something that's being discussed more and more, and there's thousands of people, and it's affecting all ages, but sadly, it's also affecting young children. Will the council leader join with me in thanking the government, the scientists, the medical professionals for their work so far, and to encourage people within the borough to take the offer of the vaccination if they are able and at the earliest opportunity, not only to protect themselves, but their family, their friends and those around them. I will add that I will continue to wear a face covering in crowded spaces and hope others do the same. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Shah.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Graham Sheldon, for your question. Our rates are significantly high locally, and we are actively monitoring them. We have vaccinated nearly 300,000 of total first and second doses in Oldham, and we will continue to promote our pop-up community clinics across the town. I would also like to thank the officers of this council and our community and voluntary sector who have really adapted in flexible ways to make sure that access for testing and vaccinations is available across our communities in the town. I have deep concern that I've raised publicly about the announcement around the 19th of July. I will also continue to wear the face mask as my colleagues will in this chamber, and we need to continue to do what, as we have done all along, which is Oldham's response has been, putting our residents first and protecting our loved ones, our families and our wider communities. And in that sense, I would like to use this opportunity to thank Councillor Sheldon for his question, and the scientists that have had a difficult challenge that sometimes has played out publicly in managing politicians, especially those that are ministers in government at this time, who seem to blurt out announcements for the sake of it and don't, on time and on occasion, has felt like haven't put public health or the concerns of our residents at the forefront. But we will continue in Oldham in the same spirit that we have, and that is taking all the precautions that are out there, staying safe and protecting our loved ones. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Shaw. I call on the Leader of the Minority Opposition to ask a question. Councillor Hoban.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd also like to convey my thoughts to the Leader of the Council on the events yesterday, and she's well aware that she has our backing. On policy matters, the previous administration purchased Spindle's shopping centre at what was supposed to be a bargain price. I'd just like to know if this administration has got carrying on with that plan, if they have any different plans for Spindles, and if there is an update on what the bargain price is now up to with the added spending that's been taking place on the site. Thank you.
Councillor Shaw, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I'd also like to thank Councillor Brian Holborn for reaching out and supporting me through the last 24 hours. Buying Spindles was a great decision for Oldham for several reasons. A, it was a bargain. Even if we knocked it down, the land alone is worth more than what we paid for it. It gives the public control of a large site right in the heart of the town centre, meaning we can turn it into something that works for Oldham, rather than leaving it to rot in the hands of disinterested Californian investors. It's key to unlocking several other projects because we own Spindles, so we can create a new performance space, develop a great new site for the Tommyfield market traders, and create much more cost-effective council offices. Develop new housing in the town to reduce pressure to build on the Greenbelt and create a brand new town centre park. Without Spindles, that all becomes a lot harder. As we develop our plans for Spindles, it's vital that regardless of the opinion of some in this chamber, that residents are at the heart of our decisions. This is their town centre. We received more than 2,000 responses to the consultation we ran earlier in the year, and we'll be consulting again in the summer to see what people think of our early ideas designed in response to what people have said. The purchase of Spindles was completed in October 2020 at a cost of 9.5 million, and this purchase included the whole site and all leases with the exception of a leasehold on the top man unit, which was purchased later in June 2021. There's huge opportunities here, and I will be continuing with that plan because it's been endorsed not just by my former predecessor, Councillor Leader Sean Fielding, but also residents of this town, and in that spirit we will continue. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
I now call on Councillor Shuttleworth to ask a question.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I wish to bring to the attention of elected members a posting by an individual who stood for election at the local elections on the 6th of May in this borough, and I apologise in advance for the wording, and I quote, "Definition of parasite, an organism that lives in or on an organism of another species, in brackets its host, close bracket, and benefits by deriving nutrients at others' expense." Speaking of which, did you know for the pleasure of wearing a few baubles and chains, the Mayor of Oldham will trouser an extra £15,662 in allowances for putting a faux fur coat on and parading around in chains. They will cost you £25,638 for the privilege. The leveller in me thinks this is rotten hypocrisy of the highest order when the same councillors complain about children going hungry. Meanwhile, they gorge themselves on taxpayer-funded civic meals and events whilst being paraded around like the prize pig. That doesn't include the cost of the mayoral chauffeur-driven car, by the way. What a rotten borough. End of quote. May I ask the leader to express her thoughts about this comment, and also ask Councillor Shah to formally raise this with the leader of the Conservative group in Oldham to establish if these are the views of his group, and if not, what action he proposes to take against the individual concerned.
Thank you. I call on Councillor Shah to respond.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I thank Councillor Shuttleworth for his question, and I'm sure I share the view of most people in this chamber and those watching online that this sort of attitude and language is hugely destructive. We've seen over the last year what an important role the Mayor of Oldham plays, raising money for charity, supporting communities and doing little things that make a big difference for people like marking birthdays and anniversaries. I would encourage the poster to look at the Mayor's Facebook page to see all the incredible activity and hard work that role involves, and will certainly raise the issue with the leader of the Conservative group. But Madam Mayor, if I can, I'd like to raise a wider point. We're all very aware of the hate being stoked up in our communities. We've seen it online, locally and nationally with a shocking response to the result of the Euros. We've seen a growth in the kind of dehumanising language used by Mr. Quigg. By calling someone a parasite, we invite people to treat them as less than human and open to attack. Like several other members in this chamber, Madam Mayor, I've experienced a barrage of it in the last couple of years. You can attack my political decisions all you want, but most of the time, instead, I get attacks against me as a person. And sadly, we've seen people in this chamber echoing the arguments of those who seek to divide us, even when they admit elsewhere there's no evidence to support them. I hope they can now see the potential and real consequences of their actions. This is not a game, because real lives and people's lives are at stake. Oldham, Madam Mayor, is better than this, and it's time for all of us to show it. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Shah. I call on Councillor Dean to ask a question.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Could the appropriate Cabinet member give me an update on the future renovation of the archway and house to the entrance of Grinnicus Cemetery? This is an historic and attractive building that has now been encased in scaffolding for over 15 years because of structural issues. I have raised this problem on a number of occasions and have been told solutions are being looked at, but no progress seems to have been arrived at. This is an iconic entrance to Oldham's largest cemetery, and residents are asking for progress. I will be grateful for a positive reply. Thank you.
Bond.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thanks to Councillor Dean for his question. The Council took steps back in 2016 to address a number of structural issues that were found to this archway structure that consist of 2 attached residential properties that also had structural problems. A protective scaffold was put in place at the time to ensure that access would be maintained to the cemetery, whilst funding opportunities could be explored to address the necessary remedial work identified, which have been estimated to be in the region of £500,000. Whilst government cuts mean an ever-decreasing funding pool for competing priorities, we are currently undertaking a strategic asset management review of the council estate to see if a potential funding opportunity can be found to support the necessary renovation works. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Jabbar. I call on Councillor Alias to ask a question.
Alias. Sorry about this. Madam Mayor, we're all aware that during the last round of budgetary considerations, it was decided to reduce the amount of direct funding that Madlow received from the council. And I'm also aware that the council offered to support Madlow in accessing alternative funding streams. Can the relevant cabinet member please tell us what support is being provided to Madlow, and also if they've been able to access any alternative funding as yet? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Alias. I call on Councillor Moores to respond, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Alias. I would like to assure members that we have an ongoing dialogue with Madlow. Council officers have met with Madlow on several occasions and supported them in identifying possible funding streams. I am pleased to be able to tell you that in addition to the £300,000 investment the Council will give Madlow in this financial year, the Council has also helped them secure additional funding. This includes £4,714 from the local support grant, £18,000 from the restart grant, and £75,000 from the additional restrictions grant. In addition, Madlow, following a bid, will receive a further £34,000 investment from our Holiday Activities Fund. This will support their activities during the summer. The Council is also investigating how its social framework supports the wider voluntary sector, including Madlow. As promised, the Council supported Madlow in identifying funding streams, and this support will continue, allowing Madlow to make an impact on the lives of many young people. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Moores. I call on Councillor Murphy to ask a question.
The Government has recently consulted on new proposals to overhaul refuse collection and recycling in England. The stated aim is to recycle 65% of our waste by 2035 and reduce landfill to a maximum of 10%. The proposals have been met with dire warnings in the media and from some councils that homes will be cursed with 7 bins as a result. That bin collection is being nationalised and that the proposals represent a costly chaos. In Oldham, we are ahead of the game in already providing for free garden and food waste collections. But can the Cabinet member please tell me what the government proposals will mean for Oldham when we are against the target? Sorry, I can't even speak. I'm going to shut up at that one. And whether the 10% target for landfill might mean the borough is threatened with more air pollution incinerators like the one rearing its ugly head to burn the residual non-recyclable waste. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. I call on Councillor Jabbar to respond.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Murphy, for your important question. The waste collected within Oldham is disposed through a shared contract with other Greater Manchester authorities. Given the combined authority aims to achieve 55% of household recycling by 2025, 60% of recycling across the 20 household waste recycling centre by 2021, and at least 90% diversion from landfill by 2021, we are well placed to deal with the government proposal with no plans for additional facilities. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Jabbar. I call on Councillor Woodbine to ask a question.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As a result of once having had more turnpike roads than anywhere else in the country, the civil parish of Saddleworth, which was at that time in the West Riding of Yorkshire, has 25 surviving milestones which have fallen into a state of disrepair after being neglected. They were erected in 1894 and as such are historically significant. So please can the Cabinet Member responsible commit to repairing and restoring these milestones on Saddleworth's highway network? I have relevant reports into the current deteriorating condition of the milestones, which I can share with the Cabinet Member, which includes information and shows where they are located in Saddleworth. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Woodbine. Before I call on Councillor Jabbar to respond, because of the timing, that will be the last question in this section, I'm advised. Thank you. Councillor Jabbar to respond.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you to Councillor Woodbine for his question. Thanks for bringing this to our attention. While the full bid would be necessary to demonstrate that this contributes to building back better and has significant community support, it would be in theory eligible for a bid through the local investment fund if you wish to apply. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Jabbar. The next part of this section is questions on Cabinet minutes. I call on Councillor Shah to move and Councillor Jabbar to second that Council notes the minutes of the Cabinet as circulating, noting that the second Cabinet date was 22nd of March 2021, not 23rd as printed. Councillor Shah.
Move, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
Seconded, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Do any members who are not Cabinet members wish to ask a question on the Cabinet minutes, and could the appropriate Cabinet member respond in each case? Are there any questions on the Cabinet minutes? Councillor Byrne.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. On the street bin replacement, it doesn't seem clear whether the bin replacement is going to cover the whole borough. Each time I've made an inquiry, I've had a rather ambiguous answer, because in my ward and a ward surrounding, we have bins that have been removed and not replaced. And when we ask the question about replacement, that is quite ambiguous in some cases, and say, we will leave you an extra bag. So when I looked through these, I didn't actually find a commitment to sites. I presume that we are going to be sent out a list of possible sites so that we can comment on them. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Byrne. Councillor Shah, you're going to respond to this one.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Chatterton isn't here today, but I will take on Councillor Byrne's comments and pass them on to Councillor Chatterton and ensure that you get a response to everything that you've raised. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I hope I've not missed anybody. Can you... Sorry, Councillor Wilkinson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's in relation to the subject that has been broached by the leader regarding abuse to councillors. So you're aware, I'm Mark Wilkinson, the elected councillor for Failsworth West. I was a police officer with Greater Manchester Police for 32 years, and following my retirement in 2006, I went to work for the Ministry of Justice in the rehabilitation of offenders.
Excuse me, Councillor Wilkinson, this is the section for asking questions on the Cabinet minutes, the last Cabinet minutes.
I did raise a point of interest 20 minutes ago.
No. So this isn't the appropriate time to raise this. Are there any other questions actually on the Cabinet minutes? Okay, thank you very much. We'll move on to joint arrangements and partnerships. The final part of this section is questions on the joint arrangements and partnerships, and I call on the spokespersons to move the minutes. AGMA, Councillor Shaw.
Move, Madam Mayor.
GMCA, Councillor Shaw.
Move, Madam Mayor.
GM Police, Fire and Criminal Panel, Councillor Williams.
Move, Madam Mayor.
Greater Manchester Waste and Recycling Committees, Councillor Torr. Thank you. Greater Manchester Health and Social Care Board, Councillor Chowan.
Move, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Greater Manchester Transport Committee, Councillor Sykes. As you were present at that meeting, can you move? Thank you. National Park Authority, Councillor McLaren. Thank you. Oldham Leadership Board, Councillor Shaw.
Move, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Commissioning Partnership Board, Councillor Chowan.
Move, Madam Mayor.
Health and Wellbeing Board, Councillor Stretton.
Move, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Do any members of the Council have a question on the minutes? Have had advance notice of some questions, so I'll call on Councillor Hazel Gloucester to ask a question.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I refer to the GMCA minutes from the 12th of February 2021. GMCA 3721, GM Brownfield Housing Fund, additional award of funding from MHCLG, page 56. Over 81 million has been awarded to Greater Manchester to support housing development projects on brownfield land sites. Please can the Cabinet member tell me how much of this money has been awarded for brownfield developments in Oldham, and how many extra new homes can now be built on brownfield instead of on greenbelt sites as a result? Is there any estimate as to how much more money would be needed in Oldham to build all the new homes proposed for the borough in the Places for Everyone plan solely on brownfield sites? Thank you.
Thank you. I call on Councillor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I'm delighted to confirm that Oldham has been successful in securing a provisional allocation from the fund for just over £8 million across 4 sites to deliver up to 551 new homes. Unfortunately, no estimate exists of how much it will cost for all brownfield sites in Oldham to be built on. However, I can assure you that we'll continue to do everything that we can to make sure that we bid and are successful in bidding for housing development on brownfield sites and to maximise the funding opportunities that will support this approach. And there are, we have discussed this before at full council, and the Flexible Housing Fund exists to help us do that. I would also note that it isn't possible to meet the Tory housing need target by building on brownfield sites. There just aren't enough of them, despite all of our efforts scouring the borough for any sites that may have become available, developing the Mills strategy and significantly increasing the number of homes planned for the town centre.
Point of order, Madam Mayor. I would like to ask if you could use your authority. There's chatter going on in my left ear. It's like somebody's left a radio on. If members of the public want to chatter, please could you ask them to do it outside, because it is rather off-putting. You won't be able to hear it on the other side, but we can hear. Thank you.
I was starting to become aware of it. So please, members of the public who've joined us this evening, you're welcome to be here. Please listen to the order of the debate and so forth. But if you want to chat or talk, there's plenty of room outside what is now our chamber for the time being. Thank you. Yeah. Please don't carry on. Okay. Thank you. Right, I'll have to find my place again now. Right, I call on Councillor Al Hamdani to ask a question.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's with regards to GMCA 3321 on the climate emergency, because we think that's important. 6-month update. Minute records that over £10 million of Green Homes grants have been awarded for energy efficiency, and over £80 million of funds have been secured to retrofit public buildings in Greater Manchester. An additional £15 million is due to be made available this year. Could the Cabinet member tell me how much of that money has been brought into Oldham, how many homes in the borough have received energy efficient upgrades, and which specific public buildings have been retrofitted as a result of this investment? Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Call on Councillor Roberts to respond, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I think we have reported to Council before about Oldham leading on delivery of the public sector section of the Green Homes Grants Programme. And we have been able to bid for upgrades on housing that we own in the borough through that programme. So 30 homes in Oldham have received energy efficiency upgrades between the 1st of March and the 31st of May 2021, funded by £130,000 from the Green Homes Local Authority Delivery Scheme. Further installations are in progress and will continue to the end of the year, and that includes both doing wall insulation and installing solar panels. Referrals can still be made at www.eonenergy.com/Green Homes Grant. £94,000 has been allocated from the Public Sector Decarbonisation Fund for an LED lighting scheme at Oldham Leisure Centre.
Thank you, Councillor Roberts. I call on Councillor Kenyon to ask a question.
With regards to the GM Health and Care Board minutes of the meeting held on the 31st of January 2020, please can someone tell me why it has taken 18 months for these minutes to be presented to a meeting of Oldham Council for scrutiny?
Thank you. Call on Councillor Chowan to respond, please.
Thank you, Councillor Kenyon, for your question. There was no meeting of the GM Health and Care Board between 31st of January 2020 and 26th of March 2021. The minutes of the meeting held in January 2020 were not approved until the meeting in March 2021 and therefore could not be presented to the full meeting of the Council before that date. Thank you.
Thank you. I call on Councillor Hamlet to ask a question.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm just standing up. It's in regards to the Peak District National Park minutes. It's come down. Oh, there we go. Peak District National Park minutes, 19th March 2021, item 2021. Climate Change Member Task Force Annual Report, page 135. This week we've heard the wonderful news that a baby beaver has been born on Exmoor for the first time in 400 years. Beavers are a force multiplier for good in the fight against climate change. Martin Viley from the Cheshire Wildlife Trust aptly described the new little guy as a superhero who can create decarbon capturing landscapes and reduce the impacts of floods, droughts and wildfires, and looks really cute into the bargain. Plans are now also underway to reintroduce beavers in Cheshire, Cumbria, Shropshire, Staffordshire and Yorkshire, in part because of a project funded by the People's Postcode Lottery. Please can I ask our representative on the Peak District National Parks Authority Board if the Climate Change Member Task Group discussed reintroducing beavers in any part of the Peak District, and if he does not have that information to hand, if you can please explore this exciting prospect at the next meeting of the board. Thank you.
Thank you. I call on Councillor McLaren to respond.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I can advise that the lead officer for the Member Climate Change Task Group has confirmed that the task group has not considered beavers at all in their work so far. However, the Natural Environment and Rural Economy Team Manager is able to offer some further information. The National Park Authority currently has no firm plans to introduce beavers to the Peak District, nor is this a topic which has been considered by the Climate Change Member Task Group, since in the Peak District there are other measures such as moorland restoration and woodland creation which are likely to have a far greater impact on climate change. We are, however, aware that a partnership of organisations is currently considering the introduction of beavers to their land in the National Park. We are broadly supportive of this proposal subject to further evaluation of the habitat suitability and potential impacts. The authority is currently in discussion with partners about producing and implementing a nature recovery plan for the Peak District. As part of this, consideration will be given to the role that reintroduction of relevant species, including beavers, might play. Any reintroduction would need to follow appropriate guidelines and consider both potential positive and negative impacts, would need to have support from landowners and would need to be adequately resourced. So the Peak Park is certainly considering it, but would want this to be done within the context of other nature conservation and climate change priorities. The proposed nature recovery plan will provide exactly that opportunity, and this work will be shared with partners over the coming 12 months. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor McLaren. That's the end of the presenting questions. Are there any other questions from members on this section on the joint arrangements and partnership reports? Okay, thank you very much. So we move on now to item 10, notice of administration business. For this section we have 30 minutes, and I call on Councillor Mushtaq to move and Councillor Moores to second the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, it's a fact that the impact of COVID has been disproportionate across the country. Some parts of the country have been affected worse than others. The make-up and economic disadvantage of some boroughs has ensured that such places have been hit harder than others. This is a fact, not an excuse. It is the job of a government to look after its people, its children and its young people. To do this, Madam Mayor, the government needs to have an understanding of its people and place. The government needs to understand that the education and development of our young people isn't restricted to the four walls of a classroom and isn't the sole responsibility of any one organisation or individual. We all have a role to play in developing and educating our young people, and we need to support each other in doing so. At this moment, Madam Mayor, I'd like to give a special mention to all those wonderful people who teach and educate our young kids, who ensure they are fed and who keep the buildings clean and functioning, ensuring a safe environment where learning can take place. It feels like some of the government rhetoric around education assumes that they are superhuman and not affected by COVID like the rest of us, or don't have families like the rest of us, or haven't lost loved ones like the rest of us. To all of them, I say thank you, and we at Oldham Council appreciate everything you do, have done, and will continue to do. Madam Mayor, catch-up is not recovery. The government uses catch-up in reference to maths, English, and other subjects. It uses catch-up in reference to exams, results, qualifications, and Ofsted, all important in terms of the system, but inconsequential in terms of the little human beings and and our children that are our children. Catch up is not recovery, Madam Mayor. Recovery encompasses so much more. The rise in domestic violence, the rise in children's services referrals, the rise in poor mental health amongst our young people, all factors that affect a young person's ability to learn. This is the greatest failure of the Conservative government, Madam Mayor, their inability to understand the human element of what's transpired over the past 16 months. So why have they offered £1.4 billion when Sir Kevin Collins, appointed by the Prime Minister as the government's Education Recovery Commissioner, suggested £15 billion? As we all know, he resigned once he realised the government had appointed him simply to tick a box. The reason for the huge shortfall is because the Tory ideology is one of education based on privilege. They need to maintain the link between wealth and education. If you can afford a good education for your child, they'll receive it. If you can't, then this is how it's meant to be. Know your place. This is the Tory government's thinking. Well, we won't accept this in Oldham. I do hope our Tory councillors can put aside the politics of this and support the motion and push the government to do the right thing instead of the Tory thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mushtaq. Councillor Moores to second, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We all know that the pandemic has had a significant impact on all sections of society. But sadly, the Conservative governments have failed and continue to fail to address many of these issues. Nowhere is this more apparent than in the government's support or lack of support being offered towards the recovery of the education and development of children and young people. Although they are unlikely to get seriously ill with COVID, children are still victims of the virus. From loss of time in school, poor mental health, rising abuse and neglect, and the potential harm being done to the development of infants and babies. The pandemic is threatening to leave a devastating legacy on the nation's young. In June this year, the Prime Minister Boris Johnson said that the next step should give parents confidence that we will do everything we can to support children who have fallen behind and that every child will have the skills and knowledge they need to fulfil their potential. Well, Mr Johnson, you have yet again failed to deliver. This lack of central government support is totally unacceptable. It will lead to those who are already disadvantaged falling further behind. This Conservative government's so-called levelling up agenda pays too little attention to the damage disadvantaged children have suffered and continue to suffer. It is a strategy that undermines the full development of individual children and the nation as a whole. There is a particular lack of support for early years, and this is a major concern. Due to the pandemic, the education and development of children and young people has been severely disrupted since March last year. I think this is around about 480 days. Research shows that the first 2 to 3 years of a baby's life are the most crucial period of development. This has become known as the 1001 days. If children fall behind during this period, they can find themselves at a lifelong disadvantage. Babies and preschoolers may have faced isolation. They may not have interacted with anyone other than their primary caregivers. They have missed crucial social interaction and play opportunities at a critical stage in brain development. This presents risks to a child's long-term social and emotional development. We need additional funding for early years settings and funding which would allow local authorities to support them. We need funding to develop family hubs that will enable us to engage with parents. We need funding to support intensive work around the transition or reintegration of children into normal activities such as preschool and nursery. What we don't need is to be forced into jumping through hoops to obtain funding that will enable us to deliver the services our children need. The government's consistent undervaluing of children and young people has also led to the underfunding of youth services. This will have a major impact on the mental and physical well-being of young people. I urge the Prime Minister and his government to invest in the future, to invest in our children and young people, to ensure that his levelling up agenda does what it says on the tin and that the children and young people of Oldham and the entire country are given the best start in life. I'd just like to finish by saying this motion is about milestones. Milestones in a child's life, not milestones at the side of the road. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Moores. Before I ask for people to speak, can I just ask members to stay seated as far as possible, unless there's an urgent call of nature, for instance. There's a lot of work gone into keeping us safe by the distance, seating, etc. So please remain seated as far as possible. Thank you. Does any member wish to speak on the motion? I have 2 people have indicated so far. I call on Councillor Hazel Gloucester, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Our education system has probably been one of the most impacted throughout the pandemic. We know that our schools have done their absolute best under the circumstances to ensure our pupils continue to learn, grow and thrive regardless of restrictions. However, the continued isolation periods, not being face-to-face with teaching or support staff and being isolated from their peers has had a massive consequence across the board. Our early years settings have probably faced an even higher cliff, as parents feeling that they are doing the best for their children in keeping children away and safe will affect our younger children's progress for years to come. We all know that the early years are the most informative and know the saying, they are like sponges. So many have either not taken up places, have had repeated absences or just not attended at all. And unlike our school pupils, they have not had anything like the same amount of support. Some parents have not even attended their settings to find out how they can help their child's progress. And unfortunately, the online support has simply not been an option for these children. Unfortunately, gaps in education funding tend to only grow, and it is imperative that our children are given the absolute best support possible to enable them to reach their full potential, and I therefore ask that you support this motion. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Gloucester. Councillor Sheldon, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The Conservative Group will be supporting this motion. We're used to all this political rhetoric and Tory bashing, but we are just coming out of a pandemic which is quite new to us all. I do want to add at this particular moment in time, if I can add my thanks to the teachers and support staff who have done a fantastic role in continuing as much of a normal lifestyle for the children who are suffering in different ways, and hopefully that won't be for a long term. So the motion resolves to invest in our children in their early years and schools, colleges, and we will support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ali, please.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm delighted that my colleagues, Councillor Mushtaq and Councillor Moores, have brought this motion to this chamber here today. I mean, it is what they are doing is fighting for my children, for the children of Oldham, for everybody's children. So thank you for that. I mean, I'm actually sort of quite disappointed with the government's sort of response to levelling up and education. I mean, I think it's a half-hearted approach by the government. When independent studies have shown that we need, 15 billion, the government is putting in 1.4 billion, which is no near the 15 billion pound that is required. And obviously, we saw the person that they appointed, that person resigned. Sir Kevin Collins resigned. So yes, I'm delighted. I mean, I'm not going to say much, so I'm delighted that the colleagues, from the Liberal Democrats and the Conservative Party are actually supporting this, supporting the motion. I mean, I do hope that the government will listen to this motion and give the money that we need in the UK and in Oldham. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ali. Councillor Sykes, please.
Yes, Madam Mayor. Can I just clarify your instructions? Is it all right for us to stay sat down while we speak then? Would that be acceptable? Is that what you said? Or
yeah.
Talk about us not moving around?
Sorry, yeah. No,
Is that what you're referring to? Are you referring to something else? Sorry,
yeah,
we're at the front. I
wasn't-
can't see what's going
no,
on.
No, I had to stand up at the beginning to see people at the back who were indicating.
So do you want us to stand or not stand, Madam Mayor?
It's your choice, Councillor Sykes.
All right, I'll stay seated.
I'm
then,
staying
if that's
sitting
okay.
down
If that's
most of the
okay, if that's okay, Madam Mayor, and I'll keep my comments very brief. Happy to support the motion. We've had, and a lot of it's been covered, so I won't go into it in any great detail, but you know, we've had millennials, we've had Generation X, and we're going to have Generation COVID, but it isn't going to be 5 or 10 years. There's a whole set of children that are going to be affected, and even when things unlock next week and they change the rules for isolating in schools and a variety of other things, there's going to be a cohort of 18 months, nearly 2 years, for a whole set of children, pre-nursery, nursery, early years, secondary, HE, FE, and uni, who have not had, and I also include all the ones that done the non-academic route as well, in terms of apprenticeships, have not had anything like what is normal. And I don't think we quite know what that's going to pan out like. And I suspect we might be talking in 10 or 20 years' time about that cohort of nursery children or early years children as they work through the system. And I'd love to be wrong, and actually I won't be here to worry about it, but I do wonder that it'll be impacted. And I think the point is, we did, and he seemed to be a decent bloke, Sir Kevin Collins, and suggested the amount that was needed. Now, you could double that amount, and I'm not suggesting you'd ever find enough money, but the amount, I think, when you work it out per pupil, is something like 40 or 50 quid each. It's not going to make any significant difference. I certainly know from the primary school where the staff have really worked their chump off, I'll tell you, as they have in other schools in our borough. But that isn't going to really make a significant difference to pupils and help them catch up with this. And the bit that I think is the most serious bit about this, it'll impact on everybody, regardless of where you are in the education system and regardless of where you are in terms of advantage or disadvantage. But it multiplies by people who are disadvantaged. So just like kids who are hungry don't learn, kids impacted upon this and from chaotic families will have a much, much bigger impact on them, will have a massive impact on their life chances, their opportunities to get jobs, employments, provide for the family, the sort of housing they'll be able to afford. So I just think, you know, let's hope things are going to get better. Let's hope we are going to build back. But that's why we're happy to support it. I just think how a country chooses to invest in its children speaks volumes about what it thinks. And this will have undone years of work to address underachievement by some of our children in our schools, and we need to keep focused on it and keep the pressure on government and other agencies to do everything they can. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Sykes. Councillor Mushtaq, do you wish to reply?
Yeah, thanks. I'll stay seated. I'll be quick. Just to thank both Howard and Councillor Sheldon for supporting the motion. And it may sound like we're Tory bashing, but in recent weeks, well, I spoke to, as part of the opportunity area and Oldham Learning, we spoke to the Permanent Secretary for Department for Education, and in January through the opportunity area with the Secretary of State. And the message that's been portrayed here tonight was also portrayed by school leaders, trust executives and teachers to those senior politicians and civil servants. Obviously, we are in a political arena, hence the political slant on the speeches, including my own, which I'm honest about. But I guess the point is, in an apolitical environment, the message is the same to the senior politicians and civil servants. So, sorry if it does feel like Tory bashing, but this is the government. They have, as Councillor Sykes has highlighted, it's a sign of the priorities of the government in how much investment they put in our young people who will be the leaders of tomorrow and the functioning societies of tomorrow. Thank you for that, and thank you for supporting the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Mushtaq. So does Council agree the motion? Those in favour, please indicate. Anyone against? Any abstentions? That motion is carried. Thank you. So the second motion, I call on Councillor Hume to move and Councillor Jabbar to second the motion.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor, and I'm sorry if my voice goes a bit. I'm still recovering from Sunday night. So I brought this motion today in support of the Climate and Ecological Emergency Bill, the CEE Bill, as the climate crisis is the greatest threat facing us today. And whilst there are actions we can take as individuals, these alone will not stop climate breakdown. With most of carbon being produced by government and business, we need to have the strongest possible legislation to tackle this issue. I could stand here for hours listing the effects of climate breakdown, but you'll be thankful I've only got 4 minutes. But just take an example from this week, we've seen flash flooding in London cause huge disruption. Our Victorian infrastructure is simply not ready for the climate crisis, and the cost of doing nothing to tackle rising temperatures will be huge. It cost over £500,000 to sort out a small section of drainage works in Delft. The cost of in the borough alone would be incredible. In North America, we've seen an estimated 1,000 people die after an unprecedented heat wave this month. And from Alaska to Wyoming, there are wildfires raging right now. We all see the impact of wildfires here on our own moorland, and the climate crisis will only make them more and more common. Last month, the government's own Committee on Climate Change said that the government were failing to deliver on the promises to dramatically cut the UK's greenhouse gas emissions. The report made clear every month of delay is making it harder to meet the legal obligations to reach net zero by 2050. The CEE bill will go further than the current environment bill that is currently progressing through Parliament. Drafted by scientists, academics and lawyers, this bill will, if backed by MPs, strengthen the Climate Change Act and ensure that Britain has a comprehensive strategy to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and restore our natural world. The Committee on Climate Change states that the government's 2050 net zero target gives us a 50-50 chance of limiting global heating to 1.4 degrees Celsius. And we need to make rapid, far-reaching and unprecedented changes in all aspects of society, according to the UN, to keep below that threshold. And the bill presents a roadmap to achieve it. The bill would use citizens' assemblies, something I think are vital for having a ground-up politics that we really should be encouraging more of, to enable representative cross-sections of society, of ordinary members of the population, to work alongside government to recommend strategies and solutions. We have fantastic projects here in Oldham, from leaky dams on Crompton Moor to peatland restoration above Dovestone, and this bill would ensure that the UK restores and regenerates its biodiversity and natural carbon sinks just like those. The bill currently has over 130 parliamentarians supporting it from a multitude of parties, including Labour, the Lib Dems and the Tories. And I hope there's cross-party support for it tonight. I know this was mentioned earlier in the meeting, but sadly we didn't get support from the government for our mine water heat network proposal. While that's not the end of the project, it's disappointing that the reason given was that it wasn't visible enough. Believe you me, the impact of climate crisis will be extremely visible if projects like these are not supported. But this is a perfect example of why we need this bill, one that puts the environment first, not photo ops. So please, support this motion, and to anyone watching at home, please get in touch with your MP about this and show them you support the bill as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hume. Councillor Jabbar to second, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd also like to thank Councillor Hume for bringing this important motion before us this evening. Climate change impact on all of us, and the colleagues in this chamber are responsible for giving true local leadership to tackle this issue and make sure that our planet is safe for the future generation. Madam Mayor, later this year, United Kingdom actually host the Climate Change Conference in Glasgow. And it is a great privilege for the United Government to be the privilege of that important world gathering. The eyes of the world will be on the British government to see what it is doing to combat the impact of climate change. The government has introduced the Environment Bill, as Councillor Hume mentioned, But the problem with it is, Madam Mayor, that it doesn't go far enough to actually protect the environment and actually give support to vital agencies like the local authority. I think the climate and the ecological emergency bill provides a better protection to our environment, but also gives statutory authorities like the Council to deal with the climate change in a constructive way. And of course, Madam Mayor, here in Oldham, as was mentioned in previous questions and debate, we have been leading in this area for a number of years now. But it's not enough what we're doing. We need to do more. We've got a council target to achieve carbon neutrality by 2025 and the borough carbon neutrality by 2030. Our ambition and the desire to progress a number of projects which will deliver carbon reduction and actually enable us to produce renewable energy requires government support. And as mentioned by Councillor Hume, that we're very disappointed the government didn't give us even 20% of the cost to put in a brilliant heat mine water district heating system in the centre of Oldham. But we're not going to give up, we will continue. But those small funding will actually go a long way to encourage local authorities and others to play their part in achieving the carbon neutrality target for the UK as a whole. Madam Mayor, we were also very disappointed that we didn't get any support from the Public Decarbonisation Fund for our Wrigley Head solar farm. In Oldham, we have proven when we are given the funding, we've got the ideas to actually implement projects that will deliver carbon neutrality. And that was illustrated brilliantly by the money we got through the Red Wolf programme to build 19 properties in Primrose Bank, where it's the homes owner are actually operating in the system where they generate the power through the PV system that we installed on the properties and is actually operating from off-grid. So that's the kind of thing, Madam Mayor, the local authorities can do if they're given the right level of support. It is important that everybody, please, this evening, support this bill, because we've seen a number of comments, and later on the agenda, people are passionate about the impact of the climate change and wanting to protect the environment. And this is the right thing to do. So I hope, Madam Mayor, everybody, when it comes to voting, can support our motion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Jabal. I've had 3 indications, but we might only get through 2 given the time limit. So, Councillor Chris Gloucester, please.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll try and be quick. In 2015, the historic Paris Agreement was signed, holding world governments to keeping a global temperature rise this century well below 2 degrees C, above pre-industrial levels, and to pursue efforts to limit the temperature increase even further to 1.5 degrees C. As a report from the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change in 2018 showed, just that extra half a degree of heating could expose tens of millions more people worldwide to life-threatening heat waves, water shortages and coastal flooding. Half a degree may mean the difference between a world with coral reefs and Arctic summer sea ice and a world without them. Alarmingly, we're not even on track to limit temperature increases to 2 degrees C. According to the UN, current policies will lead to around 3 degrees C of warming by the end of the century, but this could easily be 4% or more. These levels of global heating would, upon us, be an unacceptable risk, including the loss of the Amazon rainforest, simultaneous failures of stable crops and multi-metre sea level rise. Many scientists believe 4 degrees C would be incompatible with the reasonable characterisation of an organised, equitable and civilised global community. There's still time to prevent these catastrophic levels of heating, but only if we're prepared to take unprecedented action now. There's been a massive erosion of biodiversity and the ecosystem services such as pollution, food, water resources, flood prevention and decomposition, all essential to civilisation and human well-being. This biological annihilation underlines the crisis for humanity. Indeed, the consequences of human activity outstripping its planetary boundaries has resulted in what scientists now define as the arrival of the sixth mass extinction. The scientific evidence is irrefutable, as scientists have warned of looming ecological collapse if policymakers fail to take emergency action. Just in the UK, 41% of all UK species have declined since the 70s. Hedgehogs have declined by 95%. 26% of the UK's mammals are at very real risk of becoming extinct. A third of wild bees and other fly species have sustained losses, likely due to pesticides, habitat loss and climate change. 97% of the UK's wildflower meadows have been lost in the last century. Whilst ecological collapse matters, it's captured in the single reality that our biodiversity is the steward of our life support systems. I could go on, Madam Mayor, but I think I've given you a taste of what is realistically likely to happen unless we actually do something, and we very much support the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Gloucester. Unfortunately, we nearly run out of time on this section of the agenda. Apologies to people who wanted to speak. Councillor Hume, would you like to reply?
Sorry, I'm still wearing a mask. Just to say thank you to Councillor Gloucester for what he said and for the support of the group, and he's completely right about what we're facing if we don't take action quickly. And I think just today we found out that the Amazon rainforest now produces more carbon than it absorbs, so we are in a real dangerous position. But yeah, thank you.
Thank you. So does Council agree the motion? Those in favour? Those against? Any abstentions? That motion is carried. Thank you. We now turn to notice of opposition business, which again will have 30 minutes. I call on Councillor Al-Hamdani to move and Councillor Hamblett to second the first motion. Councillor Al-Hamdani.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to refer you to the importance in this motion of divestment and just to talk around why that is so important. The UN Framework Convention on Climate Change, their spokesman Nick Nuttall said, "We support divestment as it sends a signal to companies, especially coal companies, that the age of burn what you like, when you like, cannot continue." I would like to say that if we don't divest, are we sending a signal that they can? A further quote from somebody else: "Every company, investor and bank that screens new and existing investments for climate risk is simply being pragmatic." That's the financial case. And that is made by such wild left-wing environmental crazies as the World Bank. If the World Bank are making the case for divestment and the UN are making the moral case for divestment, how can we not? On the local level, when the price of coal collapsed in 2015, local councils in the UK lost £683 million to pension funds. Around 7% on average of pension funds in the UK are invested in fossil fuel companies. And we are exposed to the same collapse if we do not divest. And there is another case to be made financially for divesting. If we do not invest in fossil fuel companies, we invest elsewhere. And to give you some of the examples from around the country of things that they have invested in, Lancashire Council's pension fund invested £12 million in a solar co-op. There's councils in London and Manchester have invested in wind farms. Islington invested £150 million from their pension fund into social housing in their borough. Now, at a point where we're trying to make the case that we need to be spending more money locally, divestment gives us such room for manoeuvre and so much investment that we can give in our borough that it would be an absolute crime not to do it. But I'll bring you a final quote to finish us off, and I hope I've got this right because I was typing quickly. Each month we delay, it makes it harder to hit our targets on greenhouse gas emissions. We need to make far-reaching, all-encompassing changes to all aspects of our society. And that was George Hume about 10 minutes ago. Now, we can fiddle around the edges. We can make minor changes, we can try and push people in the right direction, or we can make real change. Divestment is real change. The Greater Manchester Pension Fund is such an opportunity for us that we should not miss it. And I call on every member of the council to support the motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hamblett, please, to second.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I second this motion in its original entirety. Basically, this world is on fire. Places are experiencing heat waves, fires where you wouldn't expect them to have them. Canada, Northwest America, Russia, Nordic countries, European mainland's on fire. Today, so just like Councillor Hume has said, the Amazon is now becoming a carbon emitter, not a heat sink. Parts of this country are breaking flood records every year. And you know what? We could constantly go on about possibly scaremongering, but it's not, because these are facts. They're all coming out. This nation seems to care about its fish. A report by the UK and European Climate Research Service says that cold water dwelling fish are now moving north to Nordic countries and beyond to go to newer feeding grounds. Back in September 2019, we as an opposition declared a climate emergency, which was widely supported by this council, but all we've seen from the administration so far are kite marks, straplines, promises that will maybe be delivered in the future in 2020 sometime when, for our future leaders of tomorrow to deal with. When will this council, this partner in the GM Pension Fund, wake up and say, hey, let's just go green? Not now, not when, but now. As this earth, our only one, no other alternative, needs saving now. Because at the end of the day, there's no planet B, just this one. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hamblett. I call on Councillor Jabbar to move and Councillor Hume to second an amendment. Councillor Jabbar, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I think what Councillor Al-Hamdani and Councillor Hamlet has said, broadly, I agree. But the reason why we're putting the amendment today is not that we don't disagree with them. It's just that to deal with the issues that we've got, it's not simple as just saying divesting and then that's it. It doesn't end there. You know, the Greater Manchester Pension Fund is the biggest pension fund anywhere in the country. It has assets of approximately £26 billion. It has 370,000 members, and you know it is doing everything in its power to not invest in fossil fuel, but actually encouraging the fund managers to move away from it and achieve carbon neutrality. So that's the ultimate game. The game is, what is the end result? The end result is to achieve carbon neutrality. And yes, you know, taking your money away is one weapon, but if you actually work with them, then you can achieve a better result. And that's the reason why we put forward this amendment. And I can assure you, Madam Mayor, that I've been on the board for Greater Manchester Pension Fund for the last 3 years, and every single meeting this item is discussed. And you should have heard some of the challenges that other members, including myself, have put to the managers. And I genuinely believe they're making good progress. Yes, I agree that the pace could be accelerated. But as I said, this is a fund with £26 billion of assets. You know, it's like a tanker. You can't just suddenly change course. But are they changing course? Absolutely. Are they taking this seriously? Absolutely, I can assure you that. And you know, you need to look at some of the papers and some of the changes that's happened. Let me just share one with you. Over the recent periods, they have transferred the funds of 2.5 billion of fund has been moved away from other fossil fuel to actually carbon neutral funds. So that's just an example, Madam Mayor. I can't do justice to all the things they do in here in 4 minutes, but I just want to say to you, do we care about what you're saying? Absolutely. I said when your leader spoke earlier on, I do value what you say and the challenges that you bring to this council in respect of this agenda. We do welcome that. And you're on the climate change group, steering group, and we welcome the suggestions you make there. But Councillor Hamlet, it is actually wrong to say all we've done is actually had plans and not been able to deliver anything. As I've said in the earlier contribution, we have been doing some of the leading projects in the whole of the country. I'm not aware of any local authority in the country, Madam Mayor, which delivered 19 properties which is carbon neutral. These are our properties. These are council properties. And then the other things we are doing, you know, a lot of work goes into a project, but then when we don't get the funding, we can't deliver them. Do I agree that more needs to be done? Absolutely. And your challenges like this, we welcome. But please don't think, right, the amendment undermines what you're trying to do. I'm supporting it, but I'm trying to be practical. I hope people understand that, and I hope people will support the amendment that we put forward this evening, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Jabbar. Councillor Hume, second the amendment.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As Abdul's our representative, Councillor Jabbar is our representative on the committee, I'll defer to his.
Thank you. Does anybody want to speak on the amendment? You'll have your chance to reply, Councillor Hamdan. Does anybody actually want to speak? Okay. Oh, Councillor Sykes.
Very briefly, Madam Mayor, and I accept that we're all talking the same language, but it's about when we do something, so that's why my colleagues have taken the view to oppose the amendment, although I'm not, for a word, suggesting or a doubt what Councillor Jabbar said. I think the analogy when you look at the amendment hopes to achieve what we are suggesting by 2050, bearing in mind the 3 different conversations we've already had tonight. 2050 will be too late. You know, the fish will have gone north. Vast tracts of this country will be paddling around in terms of where the floods and stuff are, in terms of desert and other things elsewhere. I dread to think how little will be left of the Amazon rainforest and some of the other things. And I suppose if you wanted an image, and that's the bit that sort of teased me out to speak. Councillor Jabbar talked about, you know, it takes time for a tanker to change course. Well, it does, but you do need to switch the engines off. And at the moment, we're not, with this amendment, suggesting we even switch the engines off. We've not even put our hand in the water and are trying to paddle it to turn it round. And we just think we could be a little bit quicker and a little bit braver. And I know he tries to do a good job for us on the pension fund, but I've tilted at this windmill for 20 to 25 years. My good friend, and he wouldn't say that of me, Roy, who used to be our leader in Tameside, I've locked horns with him on many occasions about other issues to do with the pensions fund, which were to do with war and armaments and stuff like that couldn't be done, that it now does as a matter of its course. And we will continue to challenge this issue because we need to do more. It is the largest pension fund, and it needs to lead from the front. And if it consulted its members would want it to do this. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Al-Hamdani, do you wish to reply?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have one question which I suppose will have to be answered after the meeting, and it's just for some clarity on the amendments. The motion was amended by Sandra Stewart. And I was just checking if that was amended by Sandra Stewart, who is the Deputy Chief Executive and the Borough Solicitor for Tameside and the Director of the Pension Fund. So if I could get some clarity on that for afterwards, I'd appreciate it. Now, I really do think it's important to keep the word divest in this. And looking at this motion, which the name of the motion is divest from the pension fund, once those amendments have been made, the word divestment is gone. So this isn't, this isn't tweaking. This is a solid change that removes that commitment to divest from fossil fuels. And that, if you're voting for that amendment, that's what you're voting for. Now, if you want examples of how it's possible to do this, I can give you two. Because there was an MP's pension fund, and there was a motion to divest, which was carried, and two of the people who signed that are MPs Angela Rayner and Debbie Abrams. Now, if they're supporting their pension funds to divest, why are we not supporting ours to do the same? I would encourage you to vote against this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Jabbar, do you wish to reply?
Yeah, Councillor Al-Hamdani, that is a complete misinterpretation of what I've said. I said we support divestment, but what we're saying is that we are working as a pension fund, we are actually working with fund managers to make sure not only they actually divest, but actually they achieve carbon neutrality. That's what I'm saying. And there's no ambiguity in what I'm saying. But here's the issue. You give reference to what Angela Rayner and Debbie Abrams think. I don't know about that. But let me tell you, there isn't another pension fund who's done more and invested in carbon neutrality than Greater Manchester Pension Fund. That is an absolute fact. Obviously, you have the right to question that, and I'm grateful that you're doing, and I'm grateful for the challenge that you bring. But please don't misrepresent what I'm saying. I'm not for investing in fossil fuel. I've said that very clearly. All I'm saying is this is a very complicated business. It has massive funds, and it has a responsibility to make sure that it gets the maximum benefit, financial benefit for its members, 370,000. As I mentioned, Madam Mayor, already, when Councillor Sykes says that we haven't even started, we have started. We're making excellent progress on it. I've said 2.5 billion, that's nearly 10% of the entire value of the fund, has been transferred from fossil fuel to actually carbon neutral, low carbon activities. So that, and I repeat, in terms of the total public sector pension funds, Greater Manchester has the greenest record by a long stretch. And if people want more detail, I am quite happy, Madam Mayor, to meet with Councillor Sykes, Councillor Al-Hamdani, and Councillor Hamlet to go through the progress that we're making. And if you want an officer from the Greater Manchester Fund, I can bring them as well there, just to satisfy you in terms of the progress that we're making. Now, the real question is, we've got to achieve carbon neutrality if we are going to tackle all these issues. That's the real issue. You know, can we make more progress? We can. And I will, on your behalf, as a representative, I will campaign for that. I have been campaigning. But please do not misrepresent the statement that we made and the amendment we made. I'd urge you to please support the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. So we move to the vote on the amendment. Does Council agree the amendment? Those in favour, please show. Thank you. Those against? Thank you. Any abstentions? Thank you. So the amendment is carried. So does any member wish to speak on the substantive motion as amended? No? So there's, do you want to, I mean, there is still a right to reply, or there's been no further debate?
Very briefly, to reflect on the amendment that's what we now have in front of us, if that's okay. Just very, to say, whilst I disagreed with the amendment, I will take what's, you know, I take what Councillor Jabbar said, that there is still an intention there to improve the conduct of the pension fund, and that the motion as amended does do that. It just doesn't go as far as I would like. So I would support the motion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So now we move to the vote on the substantive motion as amended. Those for, please. Those against? Any abstentions? I declare the substantive motion is amended, carried. Just to point out that we have only got 12 minutes left in this section and 2 more motions to get through, or to debate, sorry. So please bear that in mind, how we proceed with this. So motion to, I call on Councillor Murphy to move and Councillor Chris Gloucester to second the second motion. Thank you. Councillor Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm not sure how we're going to do this, because this is the part that always confuses me. But we accept the amendment, and I'd like to speak on the motion as amended. So Liberal Democrats support the amendment.
Yeah, we will still have to have the amendment formally proposed and seconded. So I call on Councillor Williams to move.
Move the amendment, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, can I just say very briefly, one of the reasons why we brought this to you was because the majority of us obviously supported this. But we just wanted to amend it, bearing in mind
could I just interrupt there? Very sorry, Steve. Yeah, sorry, we need to have the original motion seconded as well before we move to the amendment. So, Councillor Gloucester, do you...
Well, time's dragging on, Madam Mayor. I will second the motion.
Yeah. So,
but reserve my right to speak.
Okay. So, Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, the only reason why we wanted to just amend it was the fact that there's a consultation taking place at Greater Manchester, and we just wanted to amend it to reflect that, bearing in mind that there's a consultation and they need to take it into account once the consultation's taken place. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay. And Councillor Hume, second.
Yeah, second, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. So we can move straight. Yeah. Does any member wish to speak on the motion as amended? No? Oh, sorry, Councillor Bashforth.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. We obviously support this. It's a great thing. But I think it's right and proper that there's a lot of thought goes into this, how it's actually dealt with. We don't want to be giving people false expectations that we can enforce something that we absolutely impossible for it. I just wanted to tell you a little tale. It would take me 1 minute, Madam Mayor. When I was first elected, and some people may have heard me tell this tale, but I think it illustrates the situation we're in with pavement parking. I was called to a lady who lives not far from me who couldn't get a pram because of the parked cars on the streets. So I went in, she made me a cup of tea, and we were chatting about it and saying how difficult it is. And I said, yeah, I can see there's a van, that one van just outside your house. I couldn't get past it. Oh, that's all right, she said, that's my husband's. So that's the type of thing we're up against this, how we displace vehicles that are parked on the footpath now. Where would these all go? Lots and lots of questions, but it's right and proper that we start thinking about it now, because it's almost certainly going to be something that we have to deal with in the future. So I do support the motion, and I think it's right and proper that we do start thinking about the many and varied things that could go right and wrong with it. And thanks, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Gloucester, you do have a right.
Yeah, thanks, Madam Mayor. What I'll just say is that in relation to the motion as amended, our whole principle is not for a blanket ban in relation to street parking in Oldham. It is to deal with the worst offenders. It's quite funny to hear what Steve Bashforth just said, because I was actually at that meeting 20 years ago when he was newly elected, where I was then the inspector and castigated about not supporting footpath parking. So in 20 years, nothing much has changed.
So, Councillor Murphy. Sorry, I should have come to you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We just really wanted to bring this motion. The Oldham Liberal Democrats are proposing that the council gets ready to tackle nuisance pavement parking by preparing for future legislation. The Department of Transport carried out a consultation about pavement parking that ended in November last year, and it's expected that the government will soon give local councils new powers to tackle the problem. The Liberal Democrats want to be ready, and I thank people's support in the chamber, because clearly we're not on our own. The government consulted about a range of options for change in the way that pavement parking is regulated. We made it clear in our response that we oppose a blanket ban on all pavement parking, as it's simply not fair and realistic in a borough where there are so many of our motorists living in terraced houses on narrow streets. It would also be very time-consuming and expensive for the local authority to enforce. Instead, we want to see specific enforcement powers granted to local councils to enable them to deal more effectively with pavement parking when it becomes a real nuisance to pedestrians, particularly residents with sight loss, other disabilities or infirmities, or using pushchairs. We are keen to see the outcome of the consultation as soon as possible, as it's now overdue. To make ready for any new legislation, the Liberal Democrat motion calls on councillors to be involved to identify problem parking in spots in their ward, and for officers to identify a new strategy to tackle the nuisance. So I thank members for the support. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Williams, do you want to?
No, thank you, Madam Mayor. The amendment's been agreed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we're now voting on the substantive motion as amended. All those in favour? Sorry, yeah. It throws me when you agree these amendments. It throws me right off script. Firstly, we do have to vote on the amendment. All those in favour of the amendment? Thank you. Those against? Any abstentions? Thank you. That motion, as amended, is carried. By my reckoning, we've only got... Right, so now we vote on the substantive motion as amended. All those in favour? Thank you. Against? Abstentions? No. That substantive motion as amended is carried. Thank you. I was just about to say, by my reckoning, we've got 5 minutes left. We do have one more Liberal Democrat motion with Councillor Hazel Gloucester moving and Councillor Kenyon to second the motion. There's also an amendment. Do you want to take this forward now with only 5 minutes or defer it?
To be fair, Madam Mayor, I think we're more than happy to accept the amendment. So if you're happy to do your substantive amended bit, I'm happy to accept that. I will move the motion. Thank you.
Would Councillor Kenyon like to second?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll second the motion.
Thank you. Councillor McLaren to move the amendment.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Am I right in understanding the Liberal Democrats have accepted the amendment? Yeah, in which case there's no need to spend any more time. I will reserve the right to speak, sir, Madam Mayor, but formally move the amendment.
Right, so that still needs to be seconded. Yeah.
Second.
So Councillor Bashforth, are you happy to second?
Yeah, right. Okay, I'll second that, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. So we vote now on the amendment. So those in favour of the amendment, please show. Thank you. Those against? One against. Any abstentions? So the amendment is carried. So we now vote on the motion as amended. Those for? Well, I did say that at the beginning, that we only had 5 minutes left in this section, and Councillor Gloucester was happy to just accept and carry on. So I did give the option of deferring the motion. Yes, Councillor Sykes. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Right. Yeah, those for the amended motion. Those against? Any abstentions? Thank you. The substantive motion as amended is carried. Thank you very much. Thank you. Yep, given that we are in a different situation this year, in that we've got two equally numbered main opposition parties, we're proposing that we extend this section by 10 minutes to allow the Conservative group to put forward a motion. Does Council agree that? Those in favour? Anybody against? Any abstentions? Okay. So we move to the fourth motion, which is Councillor Sharp to move and Councillor Abid to second. Councillor Sharp, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I propose the motion as printed and welcome the decision by the Conservative Government to award Oldham Council with £35.1 million from both the Future High Streets Fund and the Towns Fund. This funding has been awarded to improve connectivity, help us recover from COVID-19 and to rebuild the town centre. We welcome the funds to improve connectivity through Yorkshire Street. However, there are several long and well-established businesses on Yorkshire Street that, despite past improvements to the aesthetics, have still seen most properties remain shuttered during the day. Consequently, footfall in this area is extremely low. It is hoped that this funding will be used to address the decline in the High Street, but that starts by speaking to businesses. We cannot have another situation like we had with the market traders, who said they were completely in the dark about the proposed relocation of the indoor market. It is clear the council knows best attitude does not work. So if this funding is there to help, then the council's attitude must change. To misquote President Reagan, the 9 most overused words in this administration's language are "I'm from the council and I'm here to help." It is why we have called for tough fiscal oversight of these projects. We cannot have projects going over budget, running late, or being hampered by contracts that are not fully transparent. The council has one shot to get this right. Otherwise, the public will see this as yet another failure and waste of taxpayers' money. Which brings me on to the most controversial part, the purchase and future use of spindles. Flexible working options and income generation must be on the table, and if this council has any intention of making it a success, the views of the public must be heard. Before anyone accuses me of running Oldham down, I am not. I am expressing the frustration and passions of the people of this borough. People are telling me they no longer visit the town centre because the place looks uncared for, small businesses have ceased trading, there are too many pound shops, betting shops, vape shops, and for certain, an oversupply of fast food and takeaways. Shopping habits have changed and will continue to change, and that is why consumers and businesses must be incentivised to come to the town centre. It is highly unlikely we will receive more funding if the opportunity we have fails. Madam Mayor, I am asking Council to support this motion to allow us to properly start discussing the future with residents, as all of us in this room are only here due to their trust, and it is about time we start to listen and deliver on their wishes. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Abbott to second, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I second the motion and welcome the decision by the Conservative Government to award Oldham Council with £35.1 million to improve our town. As Oldham grows, develops and changes, we as councillors must remember to listen to our communities and bring them with us. Unfortunately, I fear this council is failing to listen to our residents when it comes to the Northern Routes project. When I look at the board of directors, I only see two experts, one in the field of social enterprise and the other in wildlife. Most of the board of directors is made up of Labour councillors and a council officer. This imbalance does not inspire me or residents with the confidence that these projects will face the level of scrutiny and oversight that they need if we are to avoid them failing. Indeed, one project director alone cost taxpayers over £66,000 in 2020. The same project manager, however, retweets anti-government and anti-Brexit propaganda in a town which voted for Brexit and has just received millions of pounds in funding from the government to get this project off the ground. Oldhamers do not need platitudes and virtue signalling from well-paid middle-class left-wingers with a Twitter account. They want people who know what they're doing. They want good, well-paid jobs. Whilst this project sounds like an exciting and ambitious prospect, we must ask ourselves, is this something our town needs? From the nurse to the humble taxi driver, we have all been affected by a pandemic. Many people in Oldham are completely unaware of this project and how it will benefit them. What will taxpayers get from this project? As Councillor Sharp stated, before we consider projects, we must talk to those who it will affect the most. What are their concerns? What are their needs? Are we doing injustice to them? We must learn and adapt from the feedback given to us and review the projects we are carrying out. If this past year has taught us anything, it is that plans change and so must we. In conclusion, to fill our town's needs, we must first discover what needs to be fulfilled. Who would be better than our residents, the same people who rely on us to speak on their behalf to fill in those gaps? Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Abbott. I call on Councillor Sharp to move the amendment, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to start by congratulating both Councillor Sharp and Councillor Abbott for their maiden speech. However, there was real debate, Madam Mayor, amongst Labour councillors whether it was worthwhile amending this motion or just rejecting it because it is just so ill-informed. Ultimately, we decided it was best to table this amendment in order to correct the record. I leave it to colleagues to point out how ridiculous it is to be celebrating the Conservative government's generosity when we've lost 230 million every year because of Conservative austerity. Yes, we welcome the one-off 35 million to invest in our town, but we'd welcome much more that the 230 million every year would do to spend on adult social care, clean streets, youth services and all the other things our residents so desperately rely on. The point of this amendment, though, is to correct the absurd assertion that we haven't been listening to residents through this process. It's an unfortunate reality that the Conservatives seem to be increasingly getting their talking points and politics from the loudest voices on Facebook rather than engaging with people in the real world. This motion is an insult to the more than 2,000 people who participated in the recent town centre consultation, the 1,000 plus residents who've taken part in events and activities related to our fantastic, ambitious Northern Routes project, the Tomerfield traders who meet us regularly, and I only met them Tuesday last week, to discuss the issues and who were the people who originally suggested moving to Spindles. So I'd be really grateful to know who Councillor Sharp spoke to from the Traders Association and the many stakeholders who have helped shape plans for the new performance space. It's also an insult to the councillors from all parties who contribute to our overview and scrutiny committee, testing the assumptions and delivery plans of all the projects that they mentioned. Frankly, Madam Mayor, it's an insult to the intelligence of our residents. They say that future bids must include other parts of the borough, ignoring the fact that it was a Conservative government that dictated which parts of the borough the funding could be spent on, as well as ignoring the efforts of residents and councillors putting forward ideas for the Local Improvement Fund, which invests in every part of the borough. Clearly, it's vitally important that we're listening to residents at every step of the way while we're investing in Oldham. It's not our town, Madam Mayor, it's the people of Oldham's town, and Oldham people have to be at the heart of our decision-making. There will be another round of consultation in the summer, and I hope as many people as possible will get involved. These projects aren't about building shiny buildings. They're about changing the direction of our town so that it's one where people can live good lives, earn a decent wage and get on in life. I'm sure we can rely on all councillors to support those efforts. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. And Councillor Roberts to second the amendment, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I welcome this opportunity to discuss Labour's plans for investment in Oldham. Our amendment highlights the detailed consultation process that has led to us developing these plans and underpins our successful bids for capital funding to deliver the priorities identified. We wouldn't have got the money if we hadn't been able to show that we'd done all that work. I welcome any investment in Oldham, but I regret that the funding conditions prevented us from bidding for investment across the borough, for example, in Royton. We have set in place transparent decision-making processes to spend the money that we've been given, and our well-established scrutiny processes will make sure this is done well. But bidding for one-off capital is only part of what we need to recover from the devastating impact of the pandemic, which has exposed the cruel impact of poverty and deprivation, made worse by 15 years of coalition and Tory austerity. Oldham's communities need an end to so-called welfare reform, lifting the benefit cap, removing the two-child benefit limit, an end to the bedroom tax, and retaining the £20 uplift in universal credit. We need an end to annual cuts in support to the council and sustained improvements in funding to support council services. We need to shift to funding social housing at a social rent by Homes England, not more schemes subsidising home ownership, which raise house prices, making renting as well as owning a home more expensive. We need proper funding of our NHS, not another reorganisation as proposed in the Health and Care Bill. We need more GPs and reduced waiting lists. And we need a recognition, as we've already debated this evening, that we need proper investment to enable our children and young people to achieve their potential. I will enjoy visiting the Egyptian rooms, going to the theatre and walking in Northern Routes, using our town centre. But if it means anything at all, levelling up is more than building a photo opportunity for someone in a high-vis jacket. It should be about valuing diverse communities, recognising the barriers that people have to overcome and supporting public services to tackle inequality and disadvantage. Instead, the Tories offer us division, culture wars and yet more austerity. We deserve better than this.
Unfortunately, we are running very short of time, so there isn't time to take any speakers. Councillor Sharp, you have the right to reply.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just would like to raise a point of order in reference to the Constitution, Part 4, subsection 14.6. I do believe this amendment hasn't added to or enhanced our motion in any way. It's completely changed it, and I don't think that's correct. And I would ask that you consider ruling the amendment out of order.
I thought I'd left it on. I know we can't rule it out of order. We'll be voting on it in the democratic way. But it was ruled in on the agenda, so it can't be ruled out now. Okay. Sorry. Councillor Shah, would you like to have a right to reply?
It's fine, Madam Mayor. Let's just continue.
Okay, thank you. So we're voting on the amendment to the substantive motion. Those in favour? Thank you. Those against? Abstentions? The amendment is carried. So again, there's no time for debate. So we move to the substantive motion as amended, and the call upon the move of the original motion. You have the right again to speak.
I'm fine to carry on, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. So we're now voting on the substantive motion as amended. Those for? Against? Any abstentions? That substantive motion as amended is carried. Thank you. So we move on now to update on actions from the Council, and I call upon Councillor Shaw to move and Councillor Sheldon to second the report with amended appendices as circulated. Councillor Shaw.
Move, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Sheldon.
Second, Madam Mayor.
Does any member wish to speak? Thank you. Does Council agree the recommendations as detailed in the report? Thank you. Next, COVID-19 Recovery Strategy 2021 to 22. I call on Councillor Shaw to move and Councillor Jabbar to second the report. Councillor Shaw.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, holding the COVID recovery portfolio in the last municipal year taught me a lot. Firstly, about the power of public services and looking after our elderly people in care homes, supporting those self-isolating or shielding, administering business grants, and lastly, vitally delivering vaccines. Secondly, it taught me the power of our people, what we can achieve when we work together, support each other. I've seen so many amazing examples of people stepping up and stepping in to support their neighbours, their communities with food, medicine, or just with support and love. And lastly, it taught me the power of inequality. It taught me exactly how deep inequalities in our society run and just why addressing and reducing those inequalities matter. It's clear that the impact that COVID has had on Oldham when compared that felt by other areas is unequal. More people have lost their lives or had their health seriously affected by COVID here than elsewhere. More people have lost their jobs, been furloughed and had their businesses and income affected during the pandemic. And as we heard earlier from Councillor Mushtaq, more children have missed longer periods of school than elsewhere in the country. As we hopefully and ever so slowly come out of the other side of the pandemic, these impacts will continue to be felt in our town. If we did not act swiftly, those impacts could negatively shape Oldham's future for decades to come. That's why we are bringing forward this strategy at this point. We're acting quickly, even while still in the midst of responding to the pandemic, to outline our plan and to offer absolute clarity about what we will do to build back from the last 18 months. This strategy hasn't been built solely in the Civic Centre by council officers. It's built on the things local people have told us, their fears and concerns around the impact COVID has had on them and their communities and their hopes for the future of our town. We've listened and heard what people have told us and set ourselves 6 priority areas as a result, each with a list of projects or activities that we think are key to boosting the town's recovery and supporting local people. They are firstly driving equality. This desire to make life fairer, to ensure we work for everyone, support everyone will be central to everything that we do. We will work to better understand inequality so we can tackle it at every opportunity, whether that's financial inequality, health inequalities, or inequalities in opportunity. Secondly, we'll continue our focus on housing, ensuring we have enough to meet local need and that it's of a good standard, whether you want to buy or whether you want to rent. Thirdly, we'll drive not just a fair recovery but a green recovery as well. Across Greater Manchester, there is a commitment to build back greener with access to good quality outdoor space, clean streets and clean air. We'll tackle the economic impact head-on by working to create and protect jobs and support businesses. and will ensure our children don't continue to feel the impact of the pandemic for years to come by continuing to prioritise education and skills. And lastly, Madam Mayor, the sixth priority area is promoting health and well-being, both in the terms of physical and mental health and supporting the most vulnerable. There are many, many exciting projects and developments included in our plans for the next 18 months. We will deliver these and as a result deliver the town to a faster, more thorough recovery that will benefit local people, local areas and local services. But as well as detailed view of what we'll be delivering, I hope that what people get from this strategy is a simple message, that we, Madam Mayor, remain ambitious for our town, that we're listening to the things local people want and need, and we'll work hard to make Oldham a better, fairer place for everyone who lives and works here. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Shah. Councillor Jabbar, please, second.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm going to formally second the report. But can I take this opportunity to convey our thanks to all the staff here in the council, the NHS and the partners and the volunteers who have dedicated their time and the hard work to support the residents of this borough to get us through the pandemic period. I really do want to take this opportunity to thank them all, and we really do appreciate what they've done for this borough. I think this is an excellent report, Madam Mayor. It sets out clearly what we want to do, and I hope everybody here can support this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Joe. I have had notice of members who want to ask questions. Firstly, Councillor Hamblett has a question.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and also may I equal my thanks to all the staff and members within the Council and Oldham Cares and all the health teams as well. So my question is, supporting patients with long COVID. On page 29 under driving equality, I'd like to see some commitment to providing support to the many residents in our borough who will be suffering from the impact of long COVID. Last month, the government-funded REACH2 study revealed that more than 2 million adults have experienced COVID-19 symptoms lasting more than 12 weeks, and in May, the Cumbria and Lancashire Public Health Collaborative estimated that over 140,000 people in the North West had long COVID last year. With the collaborative identifying that the impact of long COVID is likely to be greater in the North due to the employment and economic inequalities and variations in healthcare access due to the pandemic, please could the Cabinet member tell me how many cases of long COVID there have been in this borough and identify what support and treatment packages will be made available to patients from long COVID under this recovery. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Hamblett. I call on Councillor Chowan to reply.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hamblett. Before I formally answer your question, I would like to say I was one of the first one across the country who spoke actually about the long COVID and recognized that, and thank you for bringing this here as well. It is a very important issue. I can tell you in Oldham, obviously we are very committed, have personal commitment and commitment of this administration to ensure not only people who are suffering from long COVID are being treated, but people who also have other symptoms exacerbated and conditions exacerbated due to COVID are also dealt accordingly. So we have adopted something called MDT approach, which is multidisciplinary team approach. At 31st of January 2021, we had 20,000 patients diagnosed of COVID positive. 8.1% of them were admitted and 91.9% of them were not admitted. Out of those, around 872 were identified as having symptoms of long COVID. We also have to remember that we are learning as we go along, so what we knew about COVID on the day one, we know much more, and similar will apply to long COVID as well. I can confirm that out of these patients, there are only 64 remaining patients which have not been yet discussed in our MDT clinics, and I'm sure you will appreciate that while there is long COVID, there's still COVID ongoing as well. But we have full commitment to ensure that patients with long COVID, residents with long COVID, are treated appropriately and they get full support. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chowan. I call on Councillor Sykes to ask a question.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. and I'd just like to seek an assurance, which I've had privately, publicly, that the COVID, whether we call it the recovery plan or the COVID report or what we've had at every council, has been a welcome opportunity for members to both receive updates on what we're doing. This thing's going to be with us for months, if not years, as we've already debated, and I'd just seek an assurance that in this bit of the agenda or elsewhere, something around COVID, whether it's about the recovery plan and a progress report or whatever, will be on future council meetings, as it is, you know, the #1 issue in terms of the impact on our borough. But my specific question, Madam Mayor, was regarding care home residents, relatives and staff. That, like many, have had a sort of torrid time since this pandemic, and I've spoke about this on a number of occasions at the council meeting and raised questions and concerns about the experience and treatment of some care home residents and their relatives, carers, and I have to say usually the excellent support made available to them by the council and other agencies to their staff. So could the appropriate cabinet member tell me what support will continue to be made available by the council and its health partners to care homes in this borough, its residents and its staff, after the so-called promised lifting of the remaining COVID-19 restrictions on the 19th of July, and what's the plan going forward? Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Sykes, and thank you for your ongoing personal interest in this matter. I know you always spoke about this issue and seeked assurances and also assisted. While you were asking question, leader has assured me that this agenda will be on the council and we will be providing regular updates. As you're well aware, I'm actually really feel proud of being part of Oldham Council, because this was one of the first council who set up actually in this hall our PPE store, where we said we will supply the PPEs. And I personally, as a cabinet member, went around the care homes and met some great care workers and support workers who actually moved into care home to look after those patients. And the first question I asked them, and that was the time when on the national media, it was showed that people were using plastic bags and things instead of PPEs. And I will ask them, do you have enough PPEs? And they will take me around and show me, Madam Mayor, outside the doors, extra supply of that. And that was thanks to this council staff, to the care staff, and the members who constantly ask the right questions and seek the assurances. And throughout the pandemic, social care teams have been working proactively. So we had this approach of working proactively rather than reactively. So we had a daily calls up to care homes to ensure that they are okay, including helping them to deal with the staff sickness and various other issues. We had a specialist team, public health and stitch team, supporting treatment and care at homes, community nursing services, and various other services delivered actually in the care homes. And Madam Mayor, let's not forget that was the time when on the national level this government made a huge blunder and set up a policy of saying patients should be discharged from hospital to care home without being tested. So that was the time when we were trying to pull everything together and support people at care home. And most importantly, then also distribution of key information. We ensured that as commissioners, as a social care department, we had regular newsletters providing all the necessary information to care homes, regular virtual forums, and most recently with the vaccinations, I know that some of my colleagues have been holding sessions with care home staff to explain them the importance of vaccination and why the staff needs to have a vaccination. We received money towards supporting some aspects of infection control and various other grants, which was passported to care home staff. And as more money is being made available, we will do that. But to be honest and frank, actually when the money was not available, we were here, and we will continue to be here and support our care homes in whichever way we can. Thank you.
Councillor Murphy, please, your question.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Walk-in services at the Integrated Care Centre have been closed to patients for many months, and GP services have been very difficult to access. Both of these factors have led to more pressure being put on our already strained accident and emergency service at the Royal Oldham Hospital and upon community nurses. Can the Cabinet Member please tell me whether the early restoration of the ICC services and face-to-face appointments with local GPs will be made a priority under this recovery plan? Thank you.
Thank you. I call on Councillor Chowan again.
Thank you, Councillor Murphy, for your question. I can reassure you that integrated care centre services or GP practices were never been shut. They've been operating, but they've been operating under the COVID-safe environment, which was a telephone triage, and based on if they need to be seen, they were invited for to the surgeries. What was done at the walk-in centre in line with national guidelines, a COVID-safe hub was established, a digital hub was established to assist patients when they don't need to be in A&E. They can present, they can be seen in a more COVID-safe environment, because you could not bring those COVID patients into the normal practice because of the risk of spreading the infection. Essentially, what happened in care homes, you could have duplicated that in general practice as well. Following a public consultation in the past, it was decided by CCG governing body in 2018 to close actually the walk-in centre. So that walk-in centre is not going to come back, and instead it was established as an urgent care hub. I don't see any reason why, based on the clinical needs, why patients should not be offered face-to-face appointment, and there are some national directives, and that's a discussion between clinician and the patient, but quite happy to look into that if you have any specific issue. It's never been the case that due to COVID you are not allowed to see a patient. It's just to see them in a safe environment. But if you have any specific examples or issues, please bring it and I will personally look into that. Thank you.
Thank you. I call upon Councillor Kenyon to ask a question, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. On pages 35 to 36, the strategy references creating and protecting jobs and supporting businesses. I would like to ask the Cabinet Member a question about this borough's hospitality industry. Prior to the pandemic, the national hospitality industry employed 2.4 million people in 150,000 businesses. Recent data suggests that 6,000 licensed premises have closed permanently in 2020, and I'm sure that many more will have closed so far in 2021. Can the Cabinet Member please tell me how many businesses in the hospitality sector have been lost in this borough, and do we have any estimate as to how many jobs have been lost with them? Finally, can the Cabinet Member outline how this council will be supporting this borough's hospitality industry to get back on its feet over the next 12 months? Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Chowan, will you respond, please?
Madam Mayor, with your permission, I will be close after relevant Cabinet Member.
Okay.
It's myself, Madam Mayor.
Sorry, I misunderstood the message. I thought you wanted to ask a question. Carry on, please do.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Kenyon, thank you for the question. Unfortunately, there is no data regarding closures or job losses available to us, so we cannot access that level of data. But the hospitality industry is a priority for the council, and I'm presuming for the government itself as well. The council has chosen this sector to receive priority access to the grant scheme. Average grant has been in the circle of £34,000 since the start of the pandemic, alongside furlough and other support such as bounce back loans. The business growth and investment team in the council have been in contact with most of these hospitality businesses and will continue to engage with the key stakeholders. The council is also working with Sasha Lord, Greater Manchester Combined Authorities, Night Economy to develop a supportive approach for the hospitality sector. The council have put forward a request for business support for retail, hospitality and leisure from the government's Community Renewal Fund. We are hoping to hear the outcome of this request in September from the Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy, which will hopefully in September we're hoping for good news. Get Oldham working team have been supporting the hospitality sector to access Kickstart programme that provides 6 months salary for new jobs targeting 16 to 24-year-olds. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Akhtar. A further question, I call on Councillor Hindle, please, to ask a question.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Regarding the COVID-19 recovery strategy, creating and protecting jobs and supporting local businesses. As a businessman myself, I'm only too aware of the frustration of many businesses that have approached me complaining of the lack of opportunity when tendering for OMBC contracts. This and the complaints from OMBC licensed taxi drivers that vehicles from other licensing authorities are carrying out OMBC home-to-school contracts seems to tell a different story. What is the administration going to do to see that much of the local work and local monies from the council are going to the very business that employ local people who pay their council tax to Oldham Council rather than outside of the borough? Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Hindle. Councillor Akhtar, are you going to take that one?
Thank you for the question, Councillor. Obviously, it's a detailed question,
Yeah.
and what we'll do, I'll respond to it in detail, get the full facts, and write back to all the councillors in terms of the answer. Thank you.
Okay.
Is that okay with you?
Councillor Hindle? Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Williams, I think you indicated.
Yeah, thanks very much, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, it's just going back to Aruji's report. Can you just get that page? I found it. Just give me a minute, guys. Let me just find it. That'd be my one comment. So let me just get it. Let me find it. Yeah, got it. Got to stand up, Madam Mayor. Yeah. Madam Mayor, can I just do something that's sort of, because I haven't even prepared anything. I'm just going to try and say this, so you just have to bear with me, colleagues. All right, here we go.
Is it a question, Councillor Williams?
It's a comment. I don't put it in writing. If you want me to and formulate something else for next meeting, I don't mind doing that. It's just a comment about Aruji's report. That's all. But if you want me to leave it, it's fine, Madam Mayor. Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah, but we'll leave it if that's okay.
Yeah, it's fine, Madam Mayor. I'll just make sure I get it right.
If you can turn it into a
next time, because I haven't put it in writing or anything. It's fine, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So, just Council, I don't think I've missed anybody. Oh, Councillor Gloucester, I didn't see your hand up.
No, you didn't miss me, Madam Mayor, but if the opportunity is there to speak, I will. It was just in relation to something Councillor Chohan said that struck me. So obviously the government are telling us that we're coming out of restrictions.
So it's a question you're asking?
Yeah, it is a question, right. Yeah. The government are telling us that we're coming out of restrictions on the 19th of January, and 19th of July, and Councillor Chohan was telling us about the mistake the government made in relation to people leaving hospital care to go into care homes without being tested. And it's just the question is to seek an assurance from him that once these restrictions are lifted, that there's no possibility that that will revert back to that process, if he knows the answer.
I wish I had influence on Boris Johnson and I could give you assurance, Chris. That's honest answer. But also honest answer is facts speak for themselves. Infection rates are going up. I don't need doesn't need to be rocket scientist and saying that potentially will make things worse. What can we do? We will try our best collectively. It's not only about this administration, collectively as residents and as this council, to do our best to put systems in place to safeguard people as best as we can.
Thanks, Councillor Chohan. Just a bit of backtracking. I mean, we are doing quite well for time now. So if anybody does want to comment, it is a really important report. So, Councillor Williams, if you would like to make your comments.
I wasn't expecting that, Madam Mayor. Right, to get me head thinking, you know.
Sorry
about here we go.
Have a breathe.
Madam Mayor, I'm sticking my neck out so much when I say this, but I'm just going to say it, and I just want Aruji's opinion after this. When I got COVID-19 on October the 5th, I thought, I'll have a cold, bit of a chill. No. It felt like I had a backpack on that were full of bricks. And for that week, I thought, I'll get better. And then as the second week occurred, finished up going to hospital for that night because of low oxygen levels, and then I got told I had pneumonia. And then I thought, yeah, I'll be okay. Long term, I'll be fine. I eventually went back to it on January the 14th. Coming out of work today, Madam Mayor, all these months later, I feel absolutely burnt out. Walk out work, I hobble out that car park. Why is that? Is that because I'm old, getting clapped out? Because I'm 64-year-old nearly? No, it's not that. And a couple of weeks ago, Madam Mayor, something really extraordinary happened, absolutely extraordinary, and I'm sticking my neck at everybody telling you this, so just bear with me. All of a sudden from nowhere, I had this feeling like, God, I feel rough, what's up with me? Jesus, crikey. So I went home sick. Well, the other time in 19 years of working at Oldham, I've been home sick. I left work, my shift manager said, Stephen, go and get a test. So that's the test, negative. As another one an hour later, me home, negative. Oh, God, I'm so burnt out. Gets to Wednesday, I thought, no, I'm in front of the doctor. And he said this. Told him how I felt. Dodgy mood swings, me getting fed up, niddly, nasty. Steve Williams must be joking. Everybody in this council chamber that knows me, I just don't do that. It's not my personality one bit. And that shift in personality, niddling me big time. Why Steve Williams feel like that? Because you just don't do that. And my doctor turned around and said, Steve, it's part of your illness. I said, what? And he goes, it's because of the fact that you've had COVID-19 and it's an illness that can affect any organ. I said, you're joking, man. And he goes, Stephen, the fact that you've had your immune system shot at, mentally it's getting, you know, me feel like that, Madam Mayor. I've never done that in my life, ever. And I thought, no, I'm not having that. I'm going to change. I am not going to feel like that. And the doctor simply turned around to me and said, Stephen, when you feel it coming on, that feeling, just think, nope, this ain't you, just avoid it. So I feel fine now. Absolutely great. But for months, Madam Mayor, on and off, I felt absolutely terrible. So, my mark to Rouge is simply this. If I call myself a strong-willed person to sit in this council chamber now and bear that to you guys without even thinking of anything, I've just said it a few months ago, how many other people in Oldham, Madam Mayor, are out there right now that are struggling big time with this thinking, who do I turn to? Where's my mates? What do? Do I just get used to this? So many people, Madam Mayor, are really struggling so much. There's me of thinking, no, I'm not going to feel like I'm going to change. No, I'm going to feel like that for nobody. So many people out there are really struggling but just can't come forward because they just don't simply how to. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Thank you for contributing that. Anybody else who'd like to comment? Any further questions? Thank you very much, everybody who's contributed. Does Council agree the recommendations? Sorry? Yeah, Councillor Shah, right to respond.
Thank you, Madam
In front
Mayor.
of myself.
Thank you. Just very briefly, yeah, but so thank you to all members who have contributed to the development of this recovery strategy and for your contributions this evening. It doesn't need saying again how tough the last year has been for everyone, though it's always worth repeating what an incredible job our residents from Oldham have done to support one another. Whilst things are opening up, it remains vitally important that we do everything we can to keep each other safe, and I hope we'll see residents taking this seriously, even when sometimes it seems that the government doesn't. The plan we've approved tonight is about recovery, but it's also about setting the ground for a better tomorrow. We all know that Oldham's got loads of things going for it, but that people are struggling. With this plan, we're setting the course for better health, better jobs and better lives. Now we're beginning to see the end of the tunnel. It's time to pick up the pace and push forward. We've gotten this far together, and I know with the efforts of everyone in this room and our residents, we'll make the next step together too. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Shah. So, does Council agree the recommendations as detailed within the report? Those in favour? Thank you. Anybody against? Abstentions? No, thank you. So, we move on to districts and lead members, changes to the Constitution. I call on Councillor Shah to move and Councillor Jabbar to second the report.
Move, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
Seconded, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Does any member wish to speak on this report? So there's nothing to reply to, Councillor Shah. Is there anything that you want to add?
No, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. So does Council agree the recommendations as detailed within the report?
Agreed.
Thank you. Constitution consequential amendments. I call on Councillor Shaw to move and Councillor Sykes to second the report.
Move, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Does any member wish to speak on this item? Do you want to add anything, Councillor Shaw?
No, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Does Council agree the recommendations as detailed within the report? Thank you very much. That concludes the business for this evening. enjoy the rest of your evening, whatever's left of it. Thank you.